Marshal beat to quarters!
A fascinating modern age we live in.
Welcome to the Alternative Factory Live, where we talk about and watch old stuff because new stuff sucks. Tonight we're going to talk about Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World, starring Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany. Without further ado, let's bring in the crew. First up, I have with me the ship's surgeon, Dr. Greg. What's going on, Greg?
Not much. It's funny that you assigned me that character. It's probably the character I like least in the whole movie.
Well, it's our ship though. And you're the
Okay.
medicine man of the tribe, so you're the ship's surgeon.
I suppose that makes sense. I just inject everybody. I don't cut off limbs or anything. I just everybody gets a shot.
Yeah, there you go. And then because she showed up first, she is the first officer and first lieutenant of the ship. Rhetorical thrill.
Nice.
No, you would have been anyway. Don't let me word it that way. Yeah, you would have been anyway.
Yeah, well,
What are you doing? So you watched the movie a couple of weeks ago, right? 3 weeks, maybe a month. It's
Yeah.
been a while. And
I don't keep track of time.
based on your review, your video, it seemed like you liked it, right?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I've been planning. I put it on my list of stuff to get in physical that, when I get around to it, because I hardly ever actually get stuff in physical because I'm just lazy. I know I
Right.
should, but I'm lazy. But
And
that's
maybe frugal
what I'm
too,
gonna-
right?
What's that?
Maybe frugal as well.
A little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I can watch it for something I already pay for, but
I can send you my copy. I won't watch it again.
I'll take your copy, Greg. That's fine.
So now we have Greg's opinion of it. Shocker, everyone.
It
So I'll have-
stinks. No, it's
Yeah, I don't know. We'll hold on. We'll get your thoughts. Because you'll have to qualify your opinion there later. I want to hear exactly why. But speaking of physical, I have several copies. Here's the Blu-ray that I watched the other night on my rewatch. Then I have this DVD set. I don't want to open it up because it really folds out. But it's got like a map you can frame. It's got several discs with, I think Blake has this one too. It has like behind the scenes documentary featurette, stuff like that. So I have that. And then I have a dual case that has it and the Bounty. It's like, I think the third or fourth Mutiny on the Bounty movie starring Mel Gibson and Anthony Hopkins. That movie right there is like, it's a psychological trip. I think I've talked about it before on Twitter or wherever. So if you like this movie, it's a bit different in themes, but it's still like, nautical film, but they get to the islands and stuff like that. So mutiny happens and all that shit. And it's the closest to being historically accurate of all the Mutiny on the Bounty movies. Like the original one was just like a silly 30s 40s type movie and stuff with the rough theme, but yeah, the Bounty, those two guys, great actors, as we all know. Let's greet who's here. We have 10 people watching, which is awesome. Member of the channel, E. Clay Thomason's with us. There's Blake, who can show up and tell everyone to hit the like but not be here on time for the stream. Jackson Deden is with us. Elbow cough. What the hell is that? Okay, I'm looking over here to see what that emoji is. I don't know what it means, but thanks, Jackson.
It's just an elbow cough. I don't know.
Jack of all casuals, member of the channel, is here. Leif Larson, been a while, buddy. The man with the most Scandinavian name ever. Leif Larson in the house. Melissa Lord's here, member of the channel. Soul Assassin, our good buddy, is here. I am the captain now. Yeah, wrong movie. I like that movie too, though. I thought that was a good one. What's it called?
What is it called?
Yeah, what the hell was it called?
Captain Phillips?
Yeah, it was Captain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. And then Steezo's with us. Share the stream out there, guys. And I'm hoping this stream like this on this topic will get a lot of replays because, you know, it's a evergreen topic in my humble opinion. But what we have here, everyone, is a movie made or released in 2003, and it's based on a book series, primarily one book, but they take elements from other books, like specific scenes, and they put them in there, probably because the studio and the director knew that they wouldn't get sequels because of how expensive it was. So they ripped cool stuff out of other books and they put it into this story. But the basic plot is the 10th book, The Far Side of the World. And there are 20 and a half books, 20 complete ones. The 21st one was never completed. So you really don't know how everything winds up happening with the characters. But so they took this series of books that they'd never made a television show on. They might have done some radio dramatizations, not really sure. And then they made a movie out of it, big budget. You know, they had to build and paint the ship and all that stuff. They had a giant water tank, all that type stuff. So big budget movie. They really tried to be historically accurate. In fact, a little known fact here, but Russell Crowe learned to play the violin for the film. Now, I don't know if what was filmed is actually him playing, but he learned how to play it, probably because when it was dubbed over, it wouldn't look like he was, you know, just faking it. So lots of effort was put into making this film. And by the way,
well, he's musically inclined too. Like he already played
really?
musical, and yeah, he's got that band, what, 30-odd Foot of Grunts or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's cool.
That sounds familiar.
Well, we're gonna have to get the Master at Arms here to flog Blake for being late. William Blakeney.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very good.
I thought I'd come in character. That's why I'm late. I was actually trying to find a photo where he's angry.
All right. So, you know, just generally, we don't need to go into detail at this point, but did you, how long ago did you see the film first, and do you like the film?
How long ago for the first time?
Yeah, as you eat, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The first time I watched it was not in theater, not in cinema, but it was after that, probably on DVD. Maybe I don't even know if Blockbuster was around back then. For
Yeah,
it would have been. Yeah, it would have been. So yeah, I would have seen it on DVD. It was there's actually a great quote in the behind the scenes because it's almost exactly how I feel about the movie. So I've probably seen it maybe 4 or 5 times over the course of its life, but I really can't tell you the plot besides they're chasing a ship, and then it's like a cat and mouse game of engaging and outrunning and evading the ship, and then they go to the Galapagos, and then it ends with them sort of an open ending. That's all I can really tell you about the plot, but it's more for me. This movie is just about the characters, especially Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany. Like that's the biggest thing I take away from the movie is the I guess you'd call it, we'd probably call it in Australia like the mateship of the two guys.
Yeah.
That's really why I love the movie.
And that's really what, you know, the book series is about too. And later on in the stream, I'll tell you guys what I would have done in 2005, like a couple of years later with any potential sequel, because it would have been a lot different than this film. And it still would have been based on some of the books. So here's the thing, like, we're going to go through this. And during the process, I want to explain. I love this scene, and here's how it contributed to my like the movie. But overall, just kind of give a brief statement on why you did or did not like the movie. Rhetorical throw, go.
Why I did like it? I think just because it was a compelling story and it was just a well-made movie. The relationships between the characters were definitely a big part of it. I happen to really like movies with just guy friendships, brotherhoods. Just something I really like that for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really strong in this. And yeah, the story was just really good. It's hard for me to get too detailed about it, but it was just I was interested in what was happening, and it was shot well. The effects were good. It was a long movie, but it didn't feel long to me. It felt like they were using the time properly.
Got it. So we kind of heard from Blake, but give us your thoughts, Greg.
Everywhere I wanted it to go, it steered away from, and right into every spot I didn't want it to go. And that's probably the best I can say about it. Overall, the movie is it's fine, but it leaned heavily into the areas I was least interested in and didn't go nearly into enough detail on the things that were interesting to me. So the cat and mouse game, the strategy of how they got behind the other ship, all those kind of details were just completely gone. And then we have these other characters that we get into, other than Russell Crowe and Bettany's characters, that frankly I just did not give one. I couldn't care less. In fact,
really?
I chuckled when the dipshit grabbed a cannonball and jumped. I was like, good.
Well, I think everyone did. I don't honestly. I don't think it was.
By the way, that's a dumb way to do it, because as soon as you hit the water, your body would let go of the ball no matter what.
That's true.
There's no way you're hanging on to a cannonball as soon as you hit the water.
Well, at a certain point, he's going to pass out and he's going to let go of it.
Yeah.
And probably bob right back up. But
the cannonball part I thought was just kind of silly. I'm like, okay.
Well,
but no, I wanted the strategic battle element of it, and a little less time on the characters that I didn't think really made that big of a difference.
Yeah, I kind of get that. It's because it's not what the movie was about, but that's what you wanted to see.
I'd be more interested in it if it were that.
Yeah.
Well, with that character, and we'll get into that eventually here. Hopefully we can start burning through this with some of the time limitation we have, but I don't think we were meant to sympathize with him, to be quite frank, because he was there's no way. And if you read the book, the book is way different. In the book, there's a couple of women on board and some affairs happen and stuff like that, because sometimes they had female passengers, if they're transporting nobles, stuff like that. So the character was an absolute piece of shit in the book.
So a ride for a ride, huh?
Yeah.
You can ride my boat if I can. Yeah.
Exactly. So
when I got done with the movie, I honestly thought to myself, I think the books are going to be way better, because I think the books are going to
really.
I think the details. I suspect that the details that I was missing.
You mean and I thought about this on the way home from work. That exact line you're thinking of, that seamanship. My God, that seamanship. And I'm like, Greg's going to be like, well, how did it happen? I knew you were going to say that. And if you kind of listen to it,
it might as well been the fairy godmother that just used her wand and went doing, and then there the ship was. That's about as well as they explained it.
Well,
I hated
you can infer from it, but yeah, if you do read the book, Patrick O'Brien, R.I.P., he gets really deep into that stuff. He studied it just so he could write it, and it's probably too much detail, to the point where you're like, what in the hell's going on? But basically what they did was they tacked off to the south so far, and then they just kind of circled around and was able to project where that guy was going. And it was just more of a scene to say, Jack is kind of a goofy guy and stuff, but The one thing he's good at is like being like a ship captain. And then and that's what I would have done in the second book or second movie was show like how in everything else he's pretty much a failure.
Well, and we don't really ever find out like how the other ship got the drop on him in the first place, like twice.
I thought it was just a bigger, newer.
I mean, it was faster and everything, but like you know, the fact that like it just showed up out of the blue when they were chasing them.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll explain it. We'll get to those scenes, and I'll say, okay, this is where I feel it explains that, and if you disagree, that's totally fine. But before we get into this, the one thing I want to say is I'm a little surprised you don't like at least enjoy some of the parts where I feel like, you know, there are these Kirk, Spock, McCoy relationships, right?
I did enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah,
like
all the table scenes. I could watch those 20 times in a row every day, and I wouldn't ever get tired of them.
It reminded me a lot of Wrath of Khan. Some of those, like, you know, and that's one of the things that I've always liked about Wrath of Khan is that like it made space warfare naval warfare. And I think, especially with naval warfare in movies, especially older movies or movies that are period pieces, you really get to play up the chess match. Yeah. And I just like the disappointing part about this movie is like I didn't get enough of the chess match. Okay. And I like honestly, I was just like, can we just go shoot all the stupid bugs on that dumb island? I really don't give a shit about that dumb island. What a waste of film runtime.
All right, here we go. We're gonna get into this, and yeah, we're gonna get into this. So let's see the best way of doing it. Let me see what this looks like, guys. Share my window. That looks pretty good because I'll need to be able to hit the thing. So here's the thing, like this setup, right? Let's go to the next.
Is almost completely irrelevant to the entire film.
Well, I'll get into why. So that's the ship, right? It's a frigate. It's like not a very big ship because you had first rate through fifth rate, and then you went into frigates and corvettes and smaller ships like that. So this is like as big as you can get before you become a ship of the line. So, you know, not a small one, but not a huge ship either. Like if you've ever seen the H.M.S. Victory, it's like probably 3 times as big as a ship, maybe 4, and it's still in berth and shit. Where is it in England? One of their port cities, and you can tour it and all that shit. So this is the part right here. So they kind of chickened out because in this book, The Far Side of the World, it's not a French privateer in a Yankee-made ship. It's a fucking American ship. They didn't want to do that. You know, it's like, wait a minute, you know, what's it called? The Patriot just came out. We can't put out a movie where the Americans are the bad guys, right? And plus, it's French, right? So really easy to make bad guys.
I think it would have worked, but because of how little you see of the other ship, like it's almost completely mysterious for 99% of the movie. It could have worked having them as Americans and
99.99999% of the movie.
Yeah.
So okay, explain to me. It's an American ship. Why is the English ship chasing down the American ship in the books?
Well, same reason here, because they
were allied with the French.
Yeah, and they were going to go raid, you know, like whalers and stuff. That's because that's how they funded the war, because they were at war with fucking Spain, with France, and whoever their allies were at the time. With Napoleon, it was like all over the place. He would turn on people, different countries, but at that time, they were fighting Spain and France. So that's how they funded it. By, you know, all the whaling and bringing that back and selling it and building ships, hundreds of ships. Think about that, like building that many ships, that complicated out of all this wood, that they would have to import and all that. So that's how they were going to kind of disrupt the British money machine. And plus, in the book, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to flip around, but it's closer to the War of 1812 when we had kind of re-entered into hostilities with United Kingdom, or whatever they were called at the time. I think they were the United Kingdom of England and Ireland, because I think Ireland was part of the United Kingdom at the time. So in any event, that's the chief difference. It was an American ship in the book. So that's an interesting fact.
So why is one ship like such a big deal?
Well, look what happened in the movie. They took out those one guys, and one whaler could make a shitload of money because they would like take it to the west coast of South America, like that port at the very end of the movie. Spoilers, right. Where they would go to Valparaiso, they would drop it off there, and then there are British banks there, and so just one ship could wreak havoc. That was a powerful fucking ship. It's the same class as the USS Constitution, like one of the most powerful frigates, ever. They called her Old Ironside. She's still in Boston because cannons wouldn't like penetrate it. That one ship could wreck like whalers and whoever else in the Pacific. Okay. So, I mean, they didn't want to devote more to that because the U.S. Navy was small at the time. And, the French, same thing. They had to keep all of their Atlantic fleet close to home because then the British would be able to invade the coast and stuff. They had like a picket line almost all the way across France. So
yeah, like I realized the movie like got into them hunting the whalers like later in the movie. I guess just like leading almost all the way up to that point, it was just like, okay, I don't like it's one ship and you're like chasing it like halfway around the world.
And by the way, Greg, go ahead.
I was going to say, I kind of got the impression that it was partially because it was wreaking havoc, all over the place. But it also would have been a big, for lack of a better term, PR for them to have taken out this ship that was such a big deal. But a lot of it was Aubrey's own obsession.
Yeah, it was kind of like a Captain Ahab thing. But here's the thing. Not only is the book an American, but it's based on historical events. An American ship did go to the Pacific. So it's actually based on it.
I would think like if I'm the British and I want to protect my whaling fleet, I wouldn't send a ship like on some like, go to Brazil and maybe hope to bump into this other ship. I'd be like, no, go to the whaling ships and like patrol that area.
Well, I think they were trying to catch it before it got there. Oh. That's why they're saying intercept it, right?
Okay. Yeah, because you're supposed to stop after Brazil.
Yes. And that's
yeah, like great. He gave that one line again, kind of later in the thing. It's like, well, I've already well exceeded my orders. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is kind of like an Ahab thing.
Well, yeah. When I think of that, I think of like Star Trek Generations. In the beginning, where Picard's like they could never reach you, so you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. As long as you succeed, no one was going to be mad. It's not like they can radio in and say, "Hey, get your ass back here."
Right.
So, all right, we spent enough time on that. So, they're just kind of, I think, in this opening scene, showing you what life was like on the ship. They've got livestock because they have to feed people, right? They got to make sure they have protein. They had a lot of salt pork, which doesn't go bad. I'm in a couple of like Patrick O'Brien groups online, and people do it in real life. They'll like make salt pork, don't refrigerate it, and then they'll eat it like and say, hey, it's actually good and it doesn't make me sick and stuff. By the way, every character in the movie is in the books, like plural. Killick here, he's in all the books, and he's even better in the books. He's like hilarious. I loved him.
And that's one thing in the movie that I would have done is like, if you're only going to do one movies out of so many books, like I would have had the characters there, but I just really wouldn't have made them. They would have just happened to be there and happened to have the same name. I wouldn't have focused on them.
Yeah.
Because I think that like you're missing like everything's a trade-off. It was when you're adapting a book. It's like whatever you include means that something else is probably going to have to get cut. because you can't
Correct,
have
yeah.
a movie with a 13-hour runtime because you just can't. So, like,
Right.
it's always the sacrifice of choosing, what to keep and what not to. I think, like, my preference was, and my complaint about the movie is like, what's the other stuff? Like, for me, like, yes, it showed the chickens and everything. Like, I don't feel like we got enough of like how grimy and terrible their lives were on that ship.
Well, but a lot of them wanted to be there because of the potential of prize money too.
Yeah.
Because they didn't start handing that out until, I want to say, the mid 1700s, and this is what, 1805. So a lot of those guys didn't have anything else on land, and that's why people like Jack wanted more, because it meant that they'd have something to do and they could make a shitload of money, because obviously the captain got the biggest share of the prize money. There's Lord of the Rings guy, and his
Billy Boyd.
position, yeah, that's called quartermaster. Now, unlike the army, it's not you're in charge of supplies. Quartermaster drove the ship, so he was like a non-commissioned officer on the ship. Let's see. So they're just kind of going around the ship, and then at this time of the day, it looks like the midshipmen are in command, and they reveal it later in the movie, but Hollom is like really old for being a midshipman. He's like 30 or whatever, and most of them get promoted probably by the time they're 21 or 22. And how do you become a midshipman? Well, a lot of times you buy your way in. Like in the books, Jack was by no means from a noble family, but his dad was pretty well off. I can't remember what his profession was, but he basically bought his way into the Navy. He started as a midshipman, was really good, really good sailor, and he was able to work his way up through the ranks. And you could probably tell that about the character, right? That he was like a working man that made it. So, and that's why a lot of the crew respect him. So this guy right here, I'm going to guess that Hollom was probably in a well-placed family, but just kind of that black sheep, kind of the pariah of the family. So of course, they think they see something, whatever. And I like the opening scene because they get right into it. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to give them an action scene like right off the bat, and they're going to make it interesting. Because this was interesting to watch. Is there really something there? And then they kind of do the old timey, like with the spyglass, passing it and then going back to it, kind of like in a cartoon. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, that's one of the things Peter Weir, the director, talked about. He said when he was going to adapt this movie, he didn't want to. Well, first, he had the challenge of where do you start the story? Because if you start at the start, it's a long way till you get to where they are here, kind of thing. Yeah. But he also said that he never really wanted to touch land in the movie. Like, he wanted it to be a movie about being out at sea. And when you start it with that sort of battle, and sort of instead of like a scene of where they're loading up the ship at a dock and then setting sail and stuff, this sets the tone immediately of what the movie's about.
That's kind of what I felt too. It was like, I remember thinking that this seems like something that would happen a lot later in the story. Yeah. I feel like I'm being dropped into the middle of something, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Like, I'm going to figure out what I need to figure out as it goes along.
Yep. Correct. So, he won't make a decision. So, what's his name? What's the brown-haired kid's name? The one on the left here.
I can't remember.
Yeah. So he goes ahead and yeah, Colony. Yeah. He goes ahead and calls for, battle stations, whatever. And then here come the officers. And then, here he is. The alpha male appears. And that's the thing, like with him, he was almost perfectly cast because he commanded respect. I felt like in the role, they could have picked some lame ass actor that just was way out of place. But Russell Crowe did a fantastic job in this, just exuding command authority, in my opinion.
And especially that era of Russell Crowe, like he was just coming off Gladiator, and that's when he was sort of at his peak. His acting was very almost honorable or honest. Like he was
Mhm.
going for a lot of the courageous, almost
He was going for heroic roles.
heroic roles, but
Yeah.
almost the offbeat hero sort of thing. Like not the not a lot of the heroes that were being portrayed at that time.
Yep.
The vibe I got from this movie gave me a lot of vibes of other movies, or reminded me a lot of other movies. The vibe I got from this one was like, okay, it's Gladiator meets the Patriot in the ocean.
Yeah, you could. It is very. You could almost. That's probably that.
Because,
that
like,
could have been a good pitch. For
'cause-
the to throw it.
Yeah, Russell Crowe's character, though, I mean, and the way he portrays it, it reminds me a lot of Mel Gibson's character in The Patriot, but quite a bit of Maximus as well. Like there's Maximus in there, and maybe it's just because, yeah, of course it's Russell Crowe, so you're immediately reminded of.
Can I admit
his
something?
role in The Gladiator.
I've never seen Gladiator.
What?
It's really good.
Gladiator's pretty damn good.
I assume the three of you have.
It's really good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to. I might even have it in the DVDs. Who knows? I'll have to go through the pile sometime.
No, it was so hyped when it came out. Like, it was one of those movies I avoided watching kind of out of spite, because that's my nature. And
I do that too.
I finally did watch it, and I'm like, yeah, this movie is pretty damn, it's pretty damn good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Ridley Scott's got
I
three
wouldn't call it
great
a
movies.
historical piece, but like, it's pretty damn entertaining. And boy, you like the characters you're supposed to like, and you really hate the characters you're supposed to hate.
Yeah, Ridley Scott's got three great movies, and that's probably either one or two.
I'll have to check it out.
Like, there's so many just great scenes in that movie that are just like amazingly well shot, and just like the music to the movie, like it's a legitimate like Best Picture flick. Like,
I'll see it. So, really quick historical fact here: only the captains could wear the port starboards hat, as they called those, and the junior officers wore the fore aft hats. So that was kind of what they called them. So anyway, they get attacked, and I thought that was kind of cool. And this is something out of one of the books, and yeah, they really did this a few times in battle. They used the pinnace and the other smaller boats to row them into the fog. So that type of thing really happened in battle. Like, none of this is like, it's a fictional movie, but none of what they did was fictional. All this is like very real stuff that they did. Now, you could talk about the Jonah thing later, and we will, but all the like naval activity was all researched and verified as, yeah, this is the type of stuff that happened. And beautiful shots like this, that could be a painting right there. I think those were miniatures.
I believe those are visual effects.
Visual effects, okay, because they did have miniatures. They
Yeah,
had
big
the tank.
yeah.
Yep, and then they had like sets that were sections of the ship.
Well, that's one of the things that Peter Weir talked about in a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. Like, his really what his goal was, or what his dream was for this movie, was to almost create, like, if you're looking through a crack in a window back in time. So you're looking through, and you're looking at this ship and this movie as exactly what it would have been like in 1805 or whatever. Almost just like you're able to just peer through and see as it's happening.
Yeah,
And I think
it's a shame that
authentic.
it's a shame that these type of movies are so goddamn expensive to make.
Yeah,
like, any
especially
movie
this
that has
one.
like water tanks and like, and ships, or that primarily takes place on the ocean, and you're not going to use a lot of digital effects for all the ship movement and everything. Like, it just gets, it's so goddamn expensive, but like, they're really entertaining. Like, this to me, like, seems like it would have been like a great like mini series, kind of like a the Age of Sea version of like Band of Brothers.
Yeah,
that kind of series. Like, it feels like, and I haven't read the novels, but it feels like that would be streaming would be like the perfect medium to tell this, but there's just no way to do it in a reasonable
Well, it
budget.
would have, because the very first scene in the very first book, which, by the way, Master and Commander is a misnomer, because that is like a rank, and no one in this movie is a Master and Commander. he's an actual post captain. Anyway, the very first book is at a musical. They're at like an opera house, and that's where he meets Stephen. And then he finds out he's a doctor, and he's like, well, I'm about to ship out and I don't have a ship surgeon. Do you want to like hop on or whatever? So, that scene would have been awesome to see, because, they're on land, stuff like that. But you're right. A lot of people were clamoring for like a decade after this film. Like, they want more. Never happened. He was trying to get it done, but they're so expensive, to your point. But they could have done it like they did with Horatio Hornblower, and took slight compromises in terms of the visual effects to tell like a full story that lasted, hours and hours. Because I think there are 7 made-for-TV movies on Horatio Hornblower.
And that's where you can spend the time to delve into some of these characters a little bit more.
Yeah.
And because like some of the characters that we get to know a little bit, like, it's not that they're completely uninteresting. It's just like we didn't have enough time to do much with them, and then by doing the little bit we did there, we sacrificed other things, I felt like. And streaming just would have been
you're right.
Like a 20 some episode series just would have been perfect for this kind of story.
Agreed. So I liked in this scene where, he knocks his head and you can see him like powering through, like not fainting. That kind of shows his resolve. This is a type of guy he is. That I just like the way the camera unfocused and it refocused, like he was going to go out, but he didn't. That was kind of a cool little sequence there. So it's kind of over.
What made him like double check? Just a hunch, huh? Like
double check what?
Well, because like, okay, so they call him up. They call the officers. Everybody's like, okay, we need to go to red alert, for lack of a better term. Everybody battle stations. He looks through the scope. Nothing's there. He's like, well, you still did the right thing. And they kind of start walking away. And then he starts to walk away, and then he turns around again. And he's like, I'm just going to take one more look. And then he sees, and then he tells everybody to get down.
Yeah, probably just.
It was just like a hunch or instinct, or like, I was just like, what caused him to turn around?
Right. Well, he knew that they were somewhere, right?
Or is it just that he's lucky?
Yeah, lucky.
The sea told him.
Mm-hmm.
The sea told him, yes.
So here's a point that someone in the chat made earlier in this very, very scene when he's fixing his head up. And Steven says, and this is like, made for the book readers. He says, our enemies have their spies in England, and so do we. So in the books, he's actually a spy. He's not just a doctor. He works for, naval intelligence.
Cool.
Okay.
He even spies on Jack, even though he's his friend. But he later admits to him in one of the books that, hey, like, I'm also like a intelligence agent. So that was kind of a nod to the, probably people that had read the books were like doing a fist pump at that scene, because, a lot of adaptations would have ignored it or whatever. So that was kind of a cool scene. So what the person in the chat, and forgive me, it might have been Jackson or someone. The point there was that the spies probably passed that on to the ship that, hey, surprise is after you, right? So that's how they knew that they were coming and to attack them.
Well, it's one thing to know where that they're coming. It's quite another to know exactly where they are. That was my kind of issue. It's like, okay, because the ocean is rather big, and it's not like they have radar systems.
Well, that's what they did then, though. They could, if you're at the top of a mast on a ship, you can see 12 miles. If you're on the surface of a ship, you can see 1 mile. So, they were probably on the lookout, and they were able to spot them first. Like, it happened all the time with hundreds of ships at sea. And they might have had their course too, because they had to chart their courses.
See, for me, then it's like, then show that, or like, don't.
No,
give me
it's too smart for that.
Don't give me this line about spies and then just drop it.
No. The story should tell, not they should show, not tell. That's my opinion. I thought it was smarter that they
right. And here's they tell. Oh, it's spies, and they didn't show.
Well, showing would have had a stupid cutscene where there was some, jackass like taking some papers out of an office, back in London, and you know what I mean. That would be like telling, but showing is just kind of like, well, there are spies, so maybe that was it. And a lot of people didn't pick up on that line either.
I did. I'm like, oh, okay, so there's a spy. That's how they know where they are. And then it was just kind of like, well, we'll never come back to that.
Yep. So he gets the idea. Hey, we're going to go to these shoals to refit whatever. And then there's the surgery scene that Rhetorical Thrill loves so much.
She thought she was out of the woods. I was watching a reaction. She thought she was out of the woods.
Thought we're good here. And then, well, first, because I thought he was dead because he's like talking about dying, and then he's just like on the stretcher. It's like, oh my god, I thought he was dead. Oh, he's not dead. Okay, what now?
Yep. And
that's how you do surgery. You just hack off a limb.
And
it was better in the end.
And that's where the Star Trek reference comes in. That's why McCoy is called Sawbones. A lot of people don't know that. That's because they had to do that a lot. When you got those splinters in your arm, there was no fighting infection. They didn't know what infection was in 1805. They
would just see that it's not healing and it's looking gross. And
yep.
Yeah, they didn't know what antibiotics were. That's for sure.
They didn't know you shouldn't be using rusty, implements. Yeah. They didn't know that until like Pasteur and all them in the late 1800s. So in any event, pretty gruesome scene. Could have been worse, but I think by not showing it, it probably was worse.
It was definitely worse. I
think it's better. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's better to imply what's happening than because if you show it, then you're just like, well, then it's fake. You know what I mean? Because
it's easier to pick apart.
Yeah, and you can look away.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But all you just hear the sounds and you see his face, and your mind makes it so much worse than anything they could show you.
True. All right, so they're fixing the ship. All that stuff, and then the brain surgery, that was kind of cool. And that kind of thing, crazy. That kind of thing did happen because I've seen pictures online of skulls even 1,000 years before this, where it was evidence that, brain surgery was attempted, like in Egypt and places like that. So not out of the realm of reality that surgeries like that took place. And I really like, the kind of the comedy in this scene where Mr. Hallar, not Mr. Holland, but Mr. Hallar, the bosun, says, "Get back to work, you loafers." And then he looks himself. That was kind of a funny,
He had to come and gawk too, because that's something you don't see every day.
Yeah. Is them his brains, doctor? No, that's just dried blood. Those are his brains.
Well, and he would have been invaluable as research too. That's the thing, is that it's messed up, but they would have learned a lot.
Yep. So let's see here. This is when he gives them the book on Nelson. And let's get into this, because several points throughout the movie, there are, I feel like, very reverent references to historical figures, to even the Christian religion, which is even a shock in 2003. Because let's be honest, it was still Hollywood. So very reverent of Nelson here, who, I don't care if, you're American, British, whatever, definitely like a historical hero. No one can argue that. And just brave guy. It's kind of like the character of Jack wasn't modeled after him. He was actually modeled after, I'm trying to think of the captain's name. I'll have to look it up. But it's because in real life, those captains modeled themselves after Nelson, who is on the quarterdeck during the battle. That's how he died. Sniper got him on the Victory. So leadership by example, and they're very reverent to that. Not always some, stuffy guy, whatever else. So I kind of like that they were reverent of history in this film. What did you think of the music, guys?
I thought it was great. I thought it fit really well.
Because what else do you do?
Yeah.
You got to have a hobby. Yeah. Reading, playing music, like what else? So
if I'm remembering,
I did like how Russell learned how to play the violin for it.
Yeah.
That was pretty
That's what
dedicated.
Tim said.
Yeah, I mentioned that I think before you hopped on.
Yeah.
I if I'm remembering right, they had like a single theme, but it would play at kind of different tempos, depending on what mood they wanted you to be in. It kind of I feel like I heard that same melody more than once, and they could be more like dramatic, and then at the end it was kind of more like lighthearted to kind of see you off, which I thought was a good use of that.
Yeah, the very last thing playing, at the very end of the film, it's Nights in Madrid or something like that. Like, download it. It's a great piece of music. It's not like, oh, Mozart, Beethoven. It's a lesser known composer, but fantastic piece of music for sure. It is like very much like an upbeat piece of music. So let's keep skipping ahead here.
One of the things Peter Weir
did, go ahead, Blake.
Was for the music was he actually played music as the crew was setting up and before the takes and everything, and sometimes when the takes were going on, different types of music to set the ambience of the scene and the mood of what he wanted. So a lot of that did filter in the changing themes and everything just to fit how the scene was playing out and how he wanted it, the emotional pitch that he wanted. Yep.
Yeah, it was Thomas Cochrane. That's right. And his ship was the H.M.S. Speedy. Well, Jack's first ship in the books he named it himself, was the H.M.S. Sophie. So a lot of the battles in that first book are the almost exact ones that Cochrane had in real life. So he was very much modeled after Thomas Cochrane. Thanks for reminding me of that, Steezo. So what did you guys think of this scene? You could say, oh, it's far-fetched. Well, not really, because, there was a piece in the wake of the Revolutionary War where, people were going back and forth and all that. And he happened to see one of the ships like the Constitution being built, the American frigates, and he made a model of it. Like, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of cool. And you could say, oh, it's far-fetched, like what a coincidence, but they're Navy guys and they're on a Navy ship. They were interested in naval stuff. Why wouldn't it have happened? So
I think for me, because I don't know anything about any of this stuff, any naval, maritime, sailing, none of it. I don't know anything. So I just kind of took it at face value that sure, he knows ships and he saw them building the ship. So he was able to tell this guy who knows how to make models what to make.
Yeah. Anecdotally, I would say that guy in the middle, I thought was Eric Idle until about an hour ago. The day I saw the movie. I didn't realize it wasn't him until I looked at the cast list this morning.
Yeah, is it possible that a person who happened to see the construction of the ship also happened to be aboard this other ship? Yes, it's possible. It is a little contrived, though. Come on.
I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying when I watched it, either just the way it was made, or because I'm just not, that smart, or because maybe I just tend to get absorbed in the things. Just to me, I didn't question it.
Here's what I would question. The only thing would be, okay, you still have the model, right? But why, when they embarked on the mission, why didn't they give it to him versus wait till later? That's
right. I assumed it was made like on the ship in spare time. I didn't really think about.
Oh, good point. Yeah, good point.
Like he's like, hey, this reminds me of this ship I saw when I was in Massachusetts, and they put it together, they thought of the pieces as they were on the ship. They put the puzzle
And they
together,
didn't
and
realize
then they
it was
presented
exactly the ship that they were commanded to go hunt down.
Maybe not.
But see, I think if you're gonna have these guys on there and be able to do this scene, I think the way you do it that's just a little bit more plausible is that they were selected to be on the ship because of their knowledge, and just
It could be,
that.
but aren't these guys too? I was never really clear. Some people have tried to help me with the distinction. Some of the guys on the ship, like obviously the higher up guys, they're Navy, they're official, you know, they're part of the Royal Navy. But some of these guys are just guys who know ships, guys who sail ships who aren't actually part of the Navy, and they're kind of like the lower station.
No, these guys are just seamen. That's
okay.
it. No, they were part of the Navy, yeah, but
they weren't like
they weren't officers.
Career.
They were just
is that what the word I'm looking for?
Well, they might be, but a lot of them at that time were conscripts too, because they were fighting a war on 2 or 3 fronts, so they were conscripting a lot of everyday guys, and some of them, again, like I said, wanted to be there because, they wanted potential prize money and stuff. Because
I was gonna say a lot of these guys would have been sailing a ship in some capacity anyway.
Yeah, because there were, ordinary seamen, which, they had some experience. They knew what they were doing. They were able seamen that had years of experience. Then they called them like lubbers, short for land lovers. And they were brand new. And it was just like, hey, go do this and that until you fall over the edge or survive, basically. But these guys, I would assume, are able seamen. So
yeah.
Yeah, I would have just wrote that they were selected to be on the ship because of he was selected because of his specific knowledge, and then he requested that, like, rather than it just happened to be like, oh wow, really, really lucky for us that you happen to be serving aboard this exact vessel that's chasing this exact thing that you saw.
Well, there was only one class of American ship, though. They had much smaller ones, but frigate or above. Frigate was the biggest class.
I mean, still whatever. Like, but like, yeah. Oh, you just happen, like, it's contrived. Like, it's possible that wow, just really, really lucky. But I would have approached it in a different way and made just to kind of get around that a little bit.
No, I can see your criticism on that. I'm just saying that, like, I don't know enough about this stuff, so it's like, to me, I didn't even think about it. But you bring up a good point.
And I want to know where he got the paddle pop sticks to build the model ship.
Yeah, pedal pops. Yeah, good point. Now this guy here is Mr. Allen. He's the sailing master. So, full officer, all that, but usually sailing masters were promoted from bosun and started out as working men, kind of like Jack did. Probably very few made it to captain. That's why he's so old, but the best at what he does, probably, right? With decades of experience. So that's kind of why he's older and not promoted beyond sailing master. And then, they kind of hint that Tom had served with Jack when he was much younger too. So if you're a captain, you could kind of take the people with you and stuff, like kind of handpick your crew if they were available. So that's what he apparently did. And then they get to Brazil, right? Like Timon from Brazil. And here it comes, but the only scene with women in the entire movie. Which is interesting.
Didn't have the courtesy to make them bare-breasted.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
Bastards.
And this is another nod to, the book readers, where, what he's thinking if you've read the books. Like, he wanted to give it to that chick with the umbrella. So
I was.
It looks like she wanted to get it from him. So
yeah.
It was heavily implied in the movie, like that. There was like you didn't have to guess at that connection. Like
that was one of my questions about if this was like a nod to the book. If like maybe like in the alternate story in the book, like these women got on the ship. Are they the women you're talking about? They're on the boat, or
no? They were English women. No. Yeah. No, but he's a cheating SOB in the books. So,
So that
just
was
be aware
that was
of
the
that.
little nod to it.
Let's see here. So they stock up, and then they get a tip on, oh yeah, the Acheron had swung by, and they actually speak Portuguese, which is fantastic. The diplomat guy that was there, they did that correct. Oh, and then here's one of the first table scenes, and I thought this was great because he tells the Nelson story first about passing the salt, and then about
The lesser of
Pass-
two evils.
yeah. Well, before that though, he passes on a boat cloak on a cold night because his whatever, his fervor for king and country kept him warm enough or whatever. And then Stephen thinks it's stupid, of course, because here's the thing: like, patriotism is relatively new in history. Like, think about it. It's 1300. If you're an English person, do you love England? Hell no. Your king and or queen are freaking tyrants and beheading people. So
No.
until America came about, like, patriotism really wasn't so much a thing. Well, then, obviously here at the very end of the movie, we'll get to, he's kind of using that potential patriotism of his crew and stuff, but it was not really a common thing.
He even says,
Yeah.
coming from anybody else, it would have been ridiculous.
Yeah,
but from him, it was.
Oh,
poignant.
anyone would cry, "Oh, what pitiful stuff!" Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. There's Timon. He's listening. Brazil.
Yeah, there's like, there may not have been patriotism, but there was at least like the unity was against a common enemy. So there still was.
Well, that's what
degree-
created it, though.
They did
That's
not
what
like the
created
French.
it.
Yeah. So
And they didn't like him in the 1600s either. But
I don't think they ever really liked each other.
No, I think they took United States as inspiration to say, wait a minute, this worked for those motherfuckers. We're going to start, creating this, to your point, Greg, this unity against a common enemy, which, was France. It was like, whether it was Louis or whether it was Napoleon after they beheaded Louis, it's like, these guys are a threat to us. So
nations throughout all of history, nations and empires were formed by protecting or fighting against a common enemy.
yeah,
Mhm.
very true. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So, and then they do the thing. Now, what I'll call you out for that you missed on this rhetorical thrill, like you missed.
I miss stuff all the time.
Well, when Stephen calls him out for, he basically says you made a dad joke, because the line is, he who would pun would pick a pocket.
Oh yeah, I probably was too busy laughing and rolling my eyes to even register. I'm sure I heard him, but probably didn't even register what he said.
Well, they're all freaking drunk, so it's funny just the fact that it's a dumb joke, but they're so drunk that they're laughing their asses.
What's the dumb joke? Are we talking about the lesser of two weevils?
Two weevils, yeah.
I almost threw up.
Well, you're supposed to.
That's the point.
It's dumb.
And you could tell, because like when he says it, like
there's this,
his reaction,
this kind of a stun.
like, his reaction's like, I can't believe you guys are laughing at that. It's so stupid. And then he takes his fork or his knife or whatever. He says, he who would pun would pick a pocket.
Don't.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Great. All right. What's going on here? Is this when they go out on deck and then Hullum tries to sing with them and they don't like him and they make it obvious, right?
Oh yeah, that was so uncomfortable.
And then the creepy scene where they're being watched from afar. I thought that was cool throughout the movie, where they don't, we're going to go on board the French ship and have some subtitles.
Yeah.
Like, they kept them very mysterious.
Never did. I love
because
that
they couldn't
too.
show you the captain because of the end, the twist at the end.
Yes. I don't remember if that made the video or not, but I remember saying that. I love that we don't cut over there to see what they're doing, what's happening there, see their plan. We just see them like ghosts every so often. It made it a lot better.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing where you can hear the singing from afar or whatever. And then let's see what's happening here. Yeah, and by the way, like the really young boys, that are not like midshipmen, they called them powder monkeys. And their job was just to retrieve gunpowder and stuff like that, usually orphans. So England was like, we can't pay for these kids, to live in orphanages. Throw them on some ships and let them become future sailors. So that's what they did.
Win.
Yeah, they weren't. Their main job wasn't to fetch powder; it was to receive something.
No, you would have been executed. You would have been hung from the yardarm for that, Greg. And it happens in the books a few times. Like
the hanging
buggery happens. Both of them. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And they executed him. So whoever does that. There's no airlock, but there is the yardarm they can hang you by. So
just make somebody hold a cannonball and push them off the edge.
There you go. So this is where they catch up to him, and it's like, oh, what are we going to do? And he says, run like smoke and oakum. It's like, oh, they're so much faster. He's like, we'll pull out our handkerchiefs if we have to.
Yeah.
So he estimates how long it'll be until they catch up to him, right? And then he's trying to train the midshipmen on the horizon, all that stuff, because they were very much being educated as future, gentlemen.
Yeah, sexton out.
Yep. Now this, yeah, you're right. Now this was not only in, I don't think it was in Far Side of the World, but the decoy, but this happened in real life too. One of the captains came up with this idea, and you think it's like far-fetched, but wait a minute, I'm very far away and all I see are the lights. It's not like they had night vision, whatever. All they see are like 3 lanterns and what appears to be a mast and a sail. It worked.
Was it meant to look like they'd sunk or were sinking?
No.
It was meant to look like they were very far away.
Yeah.
Just as a decoy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That confused me a little bit, but I get what you're saying now.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell, like with some, 1805 spyglass.
And by the time they get
in the
up
middle of the night.
by the time they get to where they see what you've done, you're gone.
Exactly. Because remember, he takes the wheel and he throws it hard to starboard. So that was really cool. Like that's one of the tactics that I liked that they cherry picked from like several of the books, some cool stuff like that. What did you think of that, Greg? They did something cool there, unlike, just happening on their quarter and not explaining how.
Yeah, that was fine. I didn't think it was like jaw-dropping awesome. It was just like, yeah, okay, it's a decoy. I saw it. Like, it didn't surprise me that it was like as soon as he went into the water, I'm like, oh, it's a decoy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's like, it's a little trickery. It's but I think they go to the trickery gimmick a little bit too much instead of just good.
Well, like I said, they cherry picked it all from the book. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, and they went too far into the gimmicks instead of just good positional tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess that's probably just too boring, and the gimmicky stuff is more entertaining for the movie.
That's what I would have guessed. Yeah.
Let me get into that.
Flashy.
Let me get into that, but really quick. I like the line here where, just kind of like cool leadership. He's like, "Now tell me that wasn't fun or whatever." That was kind of a cool line. But here was the goal in one-on-one ship combat. It was getting behind him, basically. So when you had the wind at your back, you had the advantage. You had the weather gauge, right? That was the goal. It wasn't to do broadsides. It was to be behind him so you could turn and do a broadside down their quarter that way, like they did in the beginning of the movie when he said to hit the deck. Because if you're shooting along the ship, there's a chance for more damage versus, we're going to just broadside each other, which, will probably sink both ships and not make them salvageable. So that's kind of the goal. So he was getting away from him here. And you couldn't have just had, okay, we're circling each other, trying to shoot at each other, to your point. The whole point of the movie is they're far away from each other, trying to get the upper hand, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that part was fascinating to me. It just I don't think the movie went into enough detail or went
Okay.
It didn't show it enough. That,
The reason why it didn't is because they're making a movie and they probably didn't want to lose too many people that weren't interested in that. That would be my guess.
Well, yeah, but you can find, then your job as a movie maker is to find a way to make it interesting and put it in there. I don't know enough about sailing to come up with an example necessarily, but the gimmick stuff, because a gimmick plays too much into the final battle. I think here it takes away. It takes away from his tactical impressiveness
Okay.
From just it's straight up sailing tactics.
Mm-hmm.
The phasmid idea, the stick insect inspiration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So really quick here,
because again, it's kind of it's a decoy again, but it's more like a rope-a-dope decoy.
Mm-hmm. I almost feel like in a book you can describe those tactics and that kind of stuff, but in a movie you can only really show it, and if you don't know what you're looking at,
it'll be expository.
It would be hard to follow.
Yeah,
it would be.
I imagined what
you don't have to have lengthy expository things though. You could just say okay, we need to head in this direction so we can stay with the wind, because if we lose the wind, we lose the bat. Just little hints here and there. You don't have to do these long well, we need to go, we need to turn, 15 degrees to starboard so, we can catch the wind at this angle. You don't have to go into the physics of sailing, but you could allude to it a little bit more in the ship movements. And there's an opportunity because then he's giving direction. The dialogue is natural because he'd be giving the instruction for the person at the helm to steer the boat in such direction.
Right. So really quick here,
as someone who hasn't read the books, I almost imagine that there was probably a lot more of especially Russell Crowe character, a lot more of his inner monologue in the book that you don't get in the movie.
Oh yeah,
There's almost
that's why I said early in the stream, I think that this makes I'm sure the book series is much. I would like the book series a lot more than I like the movie.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you why you might in a minute, but $5 from Stizo on Streamlabs. The link is pinned, guys. Donate. Why do you think they chose The Far Side of the World to make a movie over the other books? Probably because
pace.
Pace. Yeah, pace, and it's a pretty cool story. And again, I'll get into later in the stream what I would have done with the second movie. The first one would have been a fine movie. To Greg's idea earlier, having a streaming series, you could have kind of taken not all 20 books, but you could have taken, maybe 7 or 8 of them and woven maybe a 3-year story arc. Because here's the thing, when you get past book 10, there's not enough history left to tell what happens. So you just kind of have to pretend that stuff happens in the span of 6 months. So he kind of got ahead of himself in the story. So that's what I would have done. But that's the reason, pace. And, it's like a globe spanning story that's at sea. A lot of the books are not completely at sea. This one was. So
let me ask you, this movie, what is the length of time that that this movie, the events of this movie occur in?
Oh, it has to be months.
Just the distance that they're traveling, you would think it would have to be. I don't know if that was portrayed well enough either.
I have to agree on that one. Actually, I was a little bit lost as to how much time was actually going by.
Because it's they're by Brazil, and like all of a sudden they're going around the Cape, and it's like, well, I'm not a geography expert, but that's a pretty long fucking distance.
Yeah, there was a little bit of fast traveling.
They did try to sometimes just kind of show just like regular life on the ship.
Well,
just to tell you.
We're getting to the scene. Yeah, you're right. They're getting to the scene where they do allude to it, but when we get to it, I'll remember to mention it. But thanks, Steezo. Yeah. Thanks, Steezo, for the $5. But here's why you got to be careful with the books, because he wrote them in the language of the time. So grammar and everything is like he wrote them in 1805. So you have to get used to that style, and you'll have to reread stuff like, wait a minute, what is he saying here? But once you get used to it, it's kind of charming. So, and these books make like almost the top of every list of non-best-selling books that are like classics, because they weren't bestsellers by any means, but they were popular enough to where they made money because the fans that loved them did love them. So in any event, this scene right here, I like this line about I've never met a dead man that bought me a drink, and he says, well, I never met a live one that you bought one for either. Just kind of like, lower class type of humor. This is kind of a cool shot here where they pan out.
Yeah.
That was a nice shot. And then you get the line from Alan here, my God, that seamanship. And this is what Greg doesn't like.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the line. It's just like, but what seamanship? You didn't show us any. You just like.
He's telling us that it was impressive so that we can.
Yeah, the ship's teleported to a different spot on the map, and now we're here.
It might have been cut out. I don't know. Do you know, Blake? Did they do anything with this that we're not aware of?
What?
With how he gets behind him after the nighttime stuff.
Oh no, they don't really go into a lot of the details of that sort of stuff.
I don't remember either.
Anything.
Yeah, I saw it 2 weeks ago, and I don't remember them getting to that. But to Rhetorical Thrill's point, I think that was why they had the line, to show, wow, he's, you just assume that he veered off to port or starboard and kind of circled around.
Yeah,
and was able to calculate their course.
I just took his word for it that, okay, you did something impressive.
Yeah, I just lumped it all into the cat and mouse category. Like that was sort of, it's like a chess match on water kind of thing.
Yeah.
The part that I really don't like about that aspect of it, though, is like, so we're supposed to believe that like the other ship's captain, who we spend no time on the other ship really, that the other guy is like supposed to be like really, really good and tactically smart. So like, then I'm wondering like, okay, so this was a genius maneuver. Then why didn't the other guy figure that he was going to do this and like counter it in some sort of way?
Yeah. You don't like that they're telling, not showing.
Well, I just don't like, I think like you guys like that they didn't go to the other ship. I think they needed to go to the other ship a little bit. I know it would have revealed like the gimmick or the surprise at the end, which I didn't really think that was that like jaw dropping anyway. But like, I think you need to have a moment like Balance of Terror.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was missing. I was missing the other side of the tactical part, because like you're just saying like, well, one guy's a genius, then it's like, well, then the other guy must be an idiot for falling for this maneuver.
Well, I did like that line from Steven where he's like, he fights like you, Jack. You know?
Yeah,
it's implied that they're kind of like equally matched, but then here's like he just kind of like, well, he went this way and then curved back this way, and now he's behind it.
And without it being actually kind of explained, we don't see how he fooled him, because he had to have fooled him in some way, but we don't actually see how he did it.
Or the other guy like would have had to completely fail to realize that he would have tried this tactic when he's been kind of a step ahead the entire time.
Or maybe he thought he would do that, so he did something else.
It's kind of like, it's something that happens in a lot of storytelling where like they build up the villain or like the bad guy, to such a degree to set the stakes. Like, oh, our heroes are, our main characters are really, really in danger. And then we get to like the last part of the movie or the last part of the story, and it's like, okay, we're gonna have this genius guy do something really stupid, so he gets beat.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like I think this movie does a little bit of that.
I have 2 bosun's whistles in my house. I could find neither of them before the stream. One is my son's, and one was mine from about 15 years ago. I think they're still in boxes from the move. So anyway, I could have blown it on the stream here.
Do you
No
get
doubt.
much
Cool.
info about the captain of the other ship in the books? Like, do they have like crossover to that ship? And
I don't remember.
okay,
I'm assuming at least that there's pages to like the tactical situation of like where they are and things like that that would be hard to show in a movie. Like,
I've read the first 4 and then this 10th one, and it was so long ago I don't remember, to be honest. So, and I think I finished the 4th one about 2 years ago, and I went back to reading Star Wars books and stuff. So eventually I'll have to find, and here's the thing, I need to find this style because they've been released in different style covers, so I'll have to find those to match the rest of them.
I hate when the books don't match.
yeah, I
No
know.
good.
Because what I was getting to with that point is because, like Greg said at the end, where he's the villain almost, he's been so smart throughout all of this, but then falls into that sort of like a trap where you thought he would have probably seen through that a bit easier. But if you had like some crosses to the other ship, and he's been like basically kicking their ass for like months and months across the ocean, and it's almost like he gets to that end point, and it's like the other captain's hubris has gotten to a point where he's just overconfident, and he's just like, we're just rolling through this ocean now, and that might be his downfall. But yeah, without anything on the other side, it can it is a double-edged sword. Like it leaves mystery and everything, but it also leaves a lot of questions unanswered.
True. Very true.
So they're going around the horn here, right? That was a pretty intense scene. And then, of course...
well, yeah, I mean, like, you're doing a ship at sea movie. Like, whether or not it's in the books, you got to have a storm.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
Like, that's
I think
that's
legally,
just like mandatory.
yeah.
Like, the studio's like, where's the storm scene?
We paid for these
like,
rain machines. We're going to use them.
We are not doing it. We're not building boats, and we're not doing water tanks if we're not going to have a storm.
Right.
And somebody's
The audience
going in
needs
the
a
water.
storm, damn it.
Yeah, and someone's going over.
Someone's
and of course,
going overboard.
yeah, Hullum is a pussy, and he won't go up there and help Will. So he falls into the ocean when the like half of the mast breaks off, right? So it creates like a sea anchor or whatever. And what do they have to do? Well, they got to grab the axes.
They have the cliffhanger. They have to do the cliffhanger thing.
What do you mean cliffhanger?
Was it cliffhanger? It was the mountain climbing movie with
Stallone?
No, it wasn't the Stallone one. It was the one with the guy who played Robin in the Batman movie.
Oh, Chris O'Donnell.
Oh,
Chris O'Donnell. Where
not
like
K1. Was it called K1?
K1 or K2, where they had to cut
K2.
the line and kill his dad. To save everybody, like they had to, he had to cut the line
there's
one.
dead weight dragging everybody down, and someone ends up having to go with it because
they're a classic dramatic theme in a lot of different movies. Like,
I like when they called back to
do the
Castaway with Wilson.
How did they call back to it?
Wilson falls off, and then you see Wilson bobbing, and Tom Hanks is being dragged by the boat away from Wilson. It was very heartbreaking.
Oh, Castaway?
Yeah, Castaway.
Oh.
I hate
that was a
Castaway.
joke, but no one got it. Never mind.
Never saw it, never will.
It's good.
I saw it, but a long time ago.
So anyway, of course, don't forget that they gave these guys extra grog, and I guarantee he got Will's too, right? So that leads to what happens later. the emotional music, all that stuff. He goes through his
Because
stuff.
he was one of the ones who helped cut the ropes too, wasn't he? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was the captain and this guy, and I think one other guy, all went for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, it was his best friend.
Mm-hmm. So they have a chat here. He talks about, people dying under your command.
Trying to make him feel better, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And so then it starts snowing, right? So, let's go south, how south, like as far as is necessary. And it gets really freaking cold. And then they turn north, and Stephen has that line where they're all clapping. He's like, I have to assume something like impressively nautical has happened.
It's kind of how I felt for a lot of it.
That's how it is all throughout the book. Like, even to book 20, he still doesn't know jack shit about being at sea. So, and they bring out is this where they bring out the cake?
Oh yeah,
the Galapagos Island cake,
or a pudding or something.
Yeah.
Is this the scene? Are we there yet?
It looks like it honestly. It looks like shit in a Jello mold.
It looks so bad.
It's Jello. Yeah. It's pudding.
No, it's like it's the captain shit in a Jello mold.
And by the way,
like manically excited.
Much earlier in the movie, like after the first battle, I like when he looks in the bathroom and the toilet's destroyed.
Yes. So you're not sitting on that. It's all splintered and yeah,
he makes a face, but they really don't dwell on it, but it was enough to like catch a laugh at it.
It was funny. I remember that.
It's the Galapagos Islands. And then he scoops it up and he says, and for me, like the Acheron.
Yep. And then he just shoves it in his mouth and his eyes are all like big and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course I felt like are you on cocaine?
That's what it's like. That's kind of where I started to feel like he's starting to lose.
I was going to say, Tim, that's in the book, isn't it?
Yeah, no, well, Stephen is on what's that drug? Is it laudanum?
Oh yeah, laudanum.
Yeah, big time.
Opium or something, yeah.
Oh, he's into it big time. Just like people don't realize, like in the Sherlock Holmes novels, he's like doing lines of coke.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and Stephen would have had. I mean, he would have had a supply to use whenever he wanted.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, one of the things Peter Weir mentioned is he made like sort of information packets for all the people involved with the film from certain things that were in the book. And one of the things he was just like casually saying like things that they mined for information. And one of the things he was casually saying is is there things in the books about how to make your own alcohol back from like that time?
Yeah.
It still can.
And of course you had every ship, no matter the size, had a contingent of Marines. Their only job was to prevent mutinies. So they were 100% loyal to the captain without fail. Like the bigger ships, like the Victory, probably had 200. Well, on this one, they probably had, I've never counted them, but I'd assume about 20 on a ship of this size to prevent mutinies and stuff like that.
You don't want the bounty happening again.
No, definitely not. And they would, of course, as you see, participate in the battles and stuff as well.
And the kids getting hammered in this scene again.
Yeah.
And I know.
This is where they're singing.
It tripped me up all the time. I know logically, because I have read stuff. I have read historical things. I know that basically once kids were, not toddlers anymore, they were kind of just treated like mini adults. So I know that, but it's still weird to look at living now.
Yep. So that was a cool scene,
Yeah,
and
by the end of this decade, you'll be able to be on your parents' health insurance until you're 45.
Right? Just one extreme to the other.
Back then, it's like, hey, you're 13, get a fucking job and get married.
Basically.
Chimney sweep by 6.
Yeah. You lazy
Sponge your eye and loader you through the whole commission. Cool song.
There's a lot of cool music in the movie. Like both.
I like how it trails off into
outside the
the
movie.
soundtrack. Yeah.
And what the cast and crew are doing in the movie themselves.
Yep. Let's see here. So this was kind of a really short scene and kind of odd. And then this is Greg's favorite part when Blakely starts learning to be a naturalist. A rare phasmid. What do you call those? Walking sticks now in 2023? Is that what those are called?
Stick insect.
I think we call them in the United States like walking stick, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
I call them, for this movie, I call them who gives a shits.
Oh, jeez.
Well, as soon as we got to the Galapagos bit, I was just in my mind, I was like, Greg is going to love this part of the movie.
Yeah.
I hated every second of it. I literally hated every second of it.
And when when I saw the seals on the beach, I was like, "Yep, Greg's gonna love this one too."
I wanted to see some clubbing. Nope, didn't see any clubbing. I didn't see any cruelty to animals. It's not true. It's
what a jip.
You know that now in 2023, like no one's allowed to go to the Galapagos.
I'm pretty sure to this day, this is the only feature film that wasn't a documentary that's ever been allowed to film there.
Oh, they actually went.
Yeah, this is all at the actual
that.
Galapagos Islands.
They probably fucked it up for everybody else.
Yeah, it's possible. It is possible, but yeah,
they all got fucking drunk and were like humping the sea turtles, and like they're like, no more movies here.
Because there's like the flightless bird.
Yeah, one of the things Paul Bettany was saying, like the animals just had such little fear of people because there was just so little contact with humans there, that those scenes where he's like just holding up a ruler, like measuring the birds, like right next to him and stuff, measuring their wings, like that's all just wild animals, and he just went up and did it, and the birds just sort of like look at him and just wander off.
Saved a fortune for animal training, and
he goes, people probably thought this was all CGI or we had animal trainers in, or it was animatronics, but it's literally, I just walked up to a bird with a ruler and just held it there.
I definitely didn't think it was wild animals. That's for sure. That's really interesting.
Then there's the white flag, right? And they pick up Mr. Hogg. H-O-G-G. And then you get your one F-bomb of the movie. Right?
That's right.
Fucking pirates.
That's what's funny, because I drop F-bombs all the time. But
really?
it actually shocked me, though. That was the funny part, because I hadn't heard it the whole movie.
Yeah.
Well, you're only allowed X amount of them, and then your rating goes up. Or gets worse.
Yeah, so. I suppose.
What is this? Let's see. PG-13. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So they're the.
I'm going to start
whalers.
a charitable organization to pave the Galapagos Islands. Just turn it into like a big freaking parking lot.
To go where? Where are you going to park to go?
I don't care. It's just going to be a parking lot with like
ferry out.
It's not going to be one of those parking lots with like landscape trees. It's just going to be pavement.
Just a cement slab.
Just pure flat cement slab with crooked lines.
So ferry out from South America, park, then ferry back to go do your shopping and tourism, then ferry back and get in your car.
You could land a chopper on it.
No one's going to steal it. Where are they going to go?
Mm-hmm. I like Steven's outfit.
Yeah. He looks like a pimp, like a 1800s pimp.
And then he gets mad because, they have to go after.
He's literally just all ready to get. He's all dressed.
He's
ready
all
to get off
to
the
go.
boat.
Mm-hmm.
No, off we go.
That's a great.
I'm not gonna get to hump sea turtles now.
On this belligerent mission, intent on blah blah blah. Yeah, he was Who was not happy? We
Well, I
don't
mean-
have time for your damn hobby, sir.
I love that line, and then Steven's reaction to it after that, like
Yeah.
just calling basically his life work a hobby.
Right. Like I
Yeah.
as far as I mean story and you know the interaction between the characters goes, is I think they did a good job because I understand where both of them are coming from. And they both make a good point here. You know, it's both of them think that what they want to do is more important, and both of them think the other one's being unreasonable. And you can actually see both of it. And I
literally one thing is extremely time sensitive, and the other thing is until I get there to pave the island, they've had all this time to catalog all the stupid fucking bugs.
Yeah, like
there is no two sides. The right side is Russell Crowe's character. Period. End of story. Bettany's character is a fucking useless tool.
But there's no guarantee he'd ever be able to go back there, though. That's the thing. And for him,
then, you know, for the sake of science, somebody else would. But
somebody else would, but not him. That's what.
So who's being selfish?
Well, and also the fact too is that at this point, isn't it being implied that Jack is getting a little bit overzealous in what he's doing?
Well, yeah, of course. Like, you know, the kid gets killed because he wouldn't back down in the storm.
I wondered what you were giggling at.
Oh my gosh, these people know Greg too well. No, but here's the point. No, I don't think anyone with any sense, unless you're like some, you know, tree hugging hippie, would have agreed with Steven. But I think the point was, right, that they're friends, and it's like, oh no, you know, he said something hurtful. Somehow they're going to have to like resolve this. So I think that was really the whole point. Not that anyone with any reason could potentially side with Steven.
No,
It's
I
more
mean,
about
I get it. Not about siding, but like I understand his motivation. I understand where he's coming from. Yeah,
and you want to see
that's,
how they
know.
make up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least, you know, he got the bug from the kid.
Got a
He's
bug.
like, well, we got
I thought
one
that
thing.
was incredibly cute. And I know Greg's
very
gonna
sweet.
shit all over it, but I thought
I wanted it to be
cute.
one of the Beatles
I wanted it to be a
from the Mummy.
scorpion. I wanted it to be a venomous.
I wanted it to burrow
carnivorous.
under his skin and like crawl all around like in the Mummy.
It
That's
seemed
what
like
I
a
wanted.
scarab.
Yeah. Like, please be fucking poisonous. That would have been the funniest moment in the whole movie. Like, oh, the doctor's dead because the kid brought him a poisonous scorpion.
It would have been an
Or a
interesting
bug.
twist.
Instead of the Galapagos, Greg wanted him to go to Komodo Island, and then all those big dragons just descend on the boat and start eating the crew alive.
That would have been pretty cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sequel.
Yeah. So then they do gun practice, right? Which was a very real thing. And yeah, they used shot. You know, they had to. That's the only way to practice, is to have like a live fire sequence.
I mean, that
there.
makes sense, but still, it seems like you only have a finite amount of.
No, they had, and they made it, and they had plenty.
So they had okay. Second.
Yeah, and it's not like you're in a battle. You're going to use rapid fire. You know, it's a minute and a half, 2 minutes per cannon. So in one battle, it's not like you're going through hundreds of balls.
Is this where he's screaming at them like, do you want your children to sing the Marseillaise? And
yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you want to see a guillotine in Piccadilly, which is a location?
Piccadilly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you want that blah 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 whatever Napoleon to be your king?
Is that common enemy stuff?
No. Do you want your children singing the Marseillaise? No. And then let's go, and then they start loading it up. Yeah, that was good.
Watching the,
I have a lot of curious interest. It's just time and place, and like, okay, I like this is a movie about chasing down this epic battle, and it's a game of wits between captains, and I just don't really give a shit about fucking flightless birds and bugs.
See, I get you. I get you, but it's like, to me, that part was the secondary part. It was the captain and Steven. That was the story, the way I interpreted it. So I understand why that would tick you off, because that's not what you thought you were getting told.
Well, like, you can have the conflict between the doctor and him, and like the fact that he's being overzealous and too careless in his pursuits, without having it be about like, well, I need to draw pictures about bugs.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That was the story, and that's what the story ended up being, and that's not what you wanted to
Could
see.
be like, hey, look, there's an illness amongst the crew, and like we need some R&R time, and to get over this thing. They're like, and then he could be pressing like, no, we need to keep up the pursuit. And it's like, well, you're putting everybody at risk. Like, there's a lot of other ways for those two characters to be in conflict. I think. Than like, damn it, I really need to draw pictures of birds.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're in the doldrums now, right? Nothing's happening. They're cleaning the deck, and then that's when he's hiding his grog. Where's the little shot there of the rag over it? It's somewhere in there, and that's when he shoulder rams him, right? Yep. And by the way, theartofmanliness.com, great website, lots of good articles, and they're one of the few websites that haven't like cucked out or anything. Read an article about 10 years ago about presence, power, and warmth. And one of the things on power is if you're approaching someone in the hallway and you're a man, and it's another man, obviously, never yield. And if he doesn't yield, then you have to ram him. Otherwise,
just hit each other.
Yeah. And then say like, oh, sorry, I knocked you aside or something like that. But it said if you yield, then you'll forever be seen by that person as the one who yielded.
Interesting.
Anyway, just random thought. I rammed a vice president's shoulder about 10 years ago. And we just kind of looked at each other, nodded, and kept going. So anyway, office advice there. Let's see. So, he rams them, and then Master at Arms, clap that man in irons. So, you know what happens? He talks to him and says, what the hell are you doing? Why do you allow that? And
stop being a pussy.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And I think, let me find the shot of his face, of Jack's face. That was a longer conversation than I thought. Gee whiz. Yeah, right here where he's like, damned unfortunate, because he realizes he's never going to change, right?
Yeah. That this guy's where he is because
this guy doesn't have what it takes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
He doesn't have what it takes.
Yeah.
And Jack of all
This hold on. This is Harry Kim is who it is, Jack. Yeah. This is Harry Kim.
Oh, that's a good. That's actually really
I
good.
love that character.
I get that one.
Yes. I get that reference.
I get that. I understood that reference.
And to sum up my opinion, it's not too much character development, not enough naval battles. It's too much character development and no plot. It's got character and no plot.
I don't agree.
It's just, well, okay, a very, very thin, weak plot, and it's too character heavy, not enough plot. Like I think he should be able to do both.
I will say
it doesn't have to be pew pew action either.
Yeah, character. I will agree in the sense that character is the primary and the plot is secondary. I will agree. With that.
She said that at the very beginning. Yeah.
And the stuff that I'm advocating for is like tactical positioning, not necessarily battling. Like I don't want it to look like a J.J. Abrams movie.
More plot detail, like more fleshed out.
Like for a naval example of one, and obviously it's modern ships and everything, but like you look at something like the Hunt for Red October, right? Like you had like positioning and like the dialogue. The captains would discuss their strategies and like, okay, we're gonna close the distance before the torpedo arms, so we're gonna get away with it. This one, we're gonna do this. Like I don't know, it just felt like you get more of an understanding about the tactics of what's going on in the battle. It's just, but then also the positioning, like they're charting, they're looking at their charts and be like, okay, where would I go if I were him? And it's like, okay, ooh, look at this. I bet she's heading over here.
Yeah.
And there's a way in this movie, like, because he frequently, there's several scenes where he's like picking up maps, right? But we really don't see him, like, we just see him picking up maps and looking at them. We don't really see him like plotting anything. And I think that's a missed opportunity.
That's fair.
Yeah, and again, I think they did that because I feel like they thought it might take most of the audience out of the movie. That's what I think.
And that's why I think the idea of, like you guys were saying, like a streaming series, because you could balance that out a lot better.
Yes, 2 pings only.
1 ping only.
One
so
ping
anyway,
only.
back to this scene. So he's, I don't even think he realized he was 29 going on 30. So he's like, oh yeah, this
because he
guy's-
said 26 or something like that. Yeah, it was
And-
guess.
He's like, how old are you? 26? Like, I'll be, what did he say? I'll be 30 in 10 days.
Something
So
like that, yeah.
He didn't even say happy birthday. So
I almost wondered too. I wondered if he realized at that point that he maybe gave him the wrong advice, maybe made a mistake with him, because he was never going to be able to get respect from these guys. But I don't know.
yeah, and then you're right. And then the scene. So here's where Steven's telling him that he was drunk, so tip the grog over the side. And what's the line to that, Blake?
Sorry?
What's the line to that?
I know
when
it if he doesn't.
Tip the. Yeah. Well, okay. What is it?
I'd rather have him 3 sheets to the wind on occasion. Oh no, I've lost.
Than a mutiny on your hands.
Than a mutiny on my hands. Yeah.
And 200 years of naval tradition.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tradition. Getting hammered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have, what do they have on there for, I don't want to say entertainment necessarily, but what kind of luxuries do they have? What kind of, it can't be a whole lot of enjoyment, So it's like, he's kind of got a fair point there.
Yeah. You've come to the wrong cabin for anarchy, brother. That's another line that was pretty good. So
they've got
here's
a lot of really great back and forth between both of them. Like a lot of one-liners that they zing each other with throughout the whole thing.
Yep. And by the way, like earlier on in the film, there's another nod to the book readers, the novel readers, where they say, "Oh, they're so far away," and then Jack has this grin. He says, "Well, there is not a moment to lose." Well, that line is probably said about 20 times in each book. There's not a moment to lose. He says it a lot. So
that's funny.
So this is where they do the flogging, right?
Yeah.
This happens in the Bounty as well, a little bit differently. So pretty intense scene. But you had to do it because you had to show, hey, this is going to happen to you if you act similarly, right?
Yeah.
And then here's the scene where he washes his face, and then he takes the trek through the.
It's so creepy.
Through all the enlisted men. Right?
It's so unsettling just to watch too.
Yeah, it was well shot.
And this is
then
where
runs.
This is where they salute him, don't they? They
Yeah.
just stare him dead in the face and just salute, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah,
I thought
like,
they were
it's like a mocking salute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
because they knew.
Make sure you see us. We're saluting you. So just like, I thought they were gonna kill him, to tell you the truth.
Oh, they're doing it because like, hey, we're doing this because we don't want to get flogged, not because we actually respect you.
Oh, absolutely.
Here, so I don't get fined.
Yeah, and so I don't get fined. But also a way of, I think it's meant to be intimidating. Also, like, you're a little bitch, and we don't like you.
Yeah, watch your back in the next battle, because I sure
I
sure as hell won't stab the guy who's got a gun aimed at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a breakdown.
Yeah, he has a breakdown, and he's dodging work as usual.
It's like a full-blown panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing physically wrong with him, is what he says here.
As he's just cowering and shivering, and they wouldn't have had a word for it, but that it was a panic attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get a little bit of that naval superstition, about the Jonah thing. So he goes on deck and he has that short exchange with Blakely, and then he grabs a cannonball and
does the right thing.
Yeah.
the ship was instantaneously better operated the moment he like left the deck.
Well, I mean, not only that, I mean, they were not ever going to let up on him. His life on that ship was going to be a nightmare, no matter what. I don't know. I don't know if that was I think he really thought at this point too that he might actually be bad luck.
Oh yeah, big time. And then
he goes to read, have him read from Jonah too.
Yeah, Killick hands him the book, and then he closes it, and then let's find the look on Killick's face here. Yeah, he's like, "Why are you handing it back to me?"
A good captain wouldn't have like had a funeral. He would have just like anchored the boat where the kid jumped off and like commanded everybody to piss into the ocean.
I do have to say, I just thought it was ironic how he tells Blakely, you know, you've always been very kind to me, and then just ends himself right in front of him. And it's like, really? This kid has gone through a lot.
Yeah, no shit. And then the wind picks up. You know, you could say, "Oh, that's cheesy" or whatever, but it's a lot of those sailor movies, and even real sailors are very superstitious. So
they
got the mastheads.
Yeah,
or the bowheads. Sorry.
Oh, and then here's another great scene that Greg probably loved, right?
No, what's
yeah, I'm thinking so.
I laughed. I'm like, seriously, that's how he's gonna get injured? That's so fucking stupid.
I thought it was stupid too.
I honestly, like, at this point in the movie, and I'm like, okay, now, like, I saw what was gonna happen, and be like, okay, like he's gonna realize he's been chasing the guy and chasing this enemy, and now that his best friend is wounded, he's gonna have a change of heart or a change of attitude. I'm just like, because he was chasing after a fucking stupid bird and the idiot guy shot him. I'm like, that's the turning point in this movie. Like, and at that point I was like, I'm out. I'm mentally out of this movie. Done. It's over. It's never to be watched again.
It's in the Rhino recommends bin.
Yeah.
So he does, you know, his own surgery, right?
Better than the other guy doing it.
Yeah. If he's
well, he's a dentist in the books. Higgins is. Sorry,
I don't know. I don't think they specified here, but he clearly wasn't. He was clearly an assistant. He wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't. He was not the guy.
No. Next,
it's called a surgeon's mate.
Yeah. You see him, he's standing there like they go, "Oh, this guy's going to be doing surgery," and you just send it next.
I have to look at his books.
Yeah.
He's like, I need to study some pictures. He's like, study pictures. He's like, you know, to get my bearings. Yeah, so he does it himself, which, you know, I bet you that type of stuff happened back then.
Oh,
because
yeah, absolutely.
They didn't have Novocaine and all that crap.
Well, I mean, he's the only one qualified to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't be able to have anything that altered your mind at all. So you're feeling everything.
Yeah, so this guy holding the mirror is Padine. His position is what you call a loblolly boy. He was like the assistant to the surgeon. He would just, you know, retrieve the sand and clean stuff and all that.
Hold this. Bring me that.
Yep.
Sorry, I just started thinking of Bob Loblaw.
Bob Loblaw. No habla español.
And you know, if they're at this point where they realize that it's already probably started to like go bad, so it probably hurts, you know, extra at this point when he's having to go dig around in there. Ugh.
Right.
Well shot though.
Well, and this was a nice touch, you know, like having him say, "Oh yeah, I'm glad he made it because he saved my life." You know, who would think of that? So I'm glad.
Yeah, he's very concerned. He's very invested.
Mm-hmm. And then, they're playing cricket, cooking cactus.
On a stupid fucking island again.
Well, now they're gonna go hunting and drawing bugs, so even better for you.
See, that looks like a scarab. If he had picked up one of them, that would have gone in his arm like the mummy and just ended up.
No, that's
I would have appreciated that. At least.
That's Wrath of Khan, and it would have gone in his ear, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
There you go. Yeah, that would have been much better. And then the doctor has a beef with the captain because he's got the earwig in his brain and it's scrambling his brain up.
Then it just becomes a zombie movie from there on out.
I mean, might as well at this point, because like all these events are the fact that the idiot was like galloping or prancing after a bird on the ship and got shot by an idiot.
Yeah, that dude that actually shot him, total moron. Like,
Yes.
how do you?
100%.
How do you not immediately like execute that guy and throw his body off the boat? Be like, you fucking idiot! You're off the ship. Like, you're gone.
Yeah, it was still really odd.
Swim, and if you make it back to England, we'll see you.
Yeah, they should have just left him here.
So, here's the thing. The way I justify it in my mind is that, he had already exceeded his orders. So it's like, okay, we don't come back with the ship. At least I saved my friend's life,
Mhm.
That's the
but wait, the ship is just 10 feet away.
Not 10. They walked miles to the other side of the island.
Okay, 10 miles away.
Oh, and just before we get to that, but I just want rhetorical. So we know that on the island they're not boobies.
There were some, I think, from what I was told later.
Oh, okay.
I tried to explain my idiocy and made myself like a bigger idiot.
What?
was
I love that.
did.
I love that interlude in your reaction.
Oh, you mean the birds? You mean?
Because
Yeah.
I thought the bird he was after was a booby because I swore I saw a bird with blue feet. And then I found out, no, it's literally just a flightless cormorant he's after. Well, then someone pointed out to me later that, no, there actually are booby birds on this island. So I did see them. I just
Would have
got
been better if
confused.
there was boobies on the island.
It would have it probably would have got a sequel if they'd had those.
I don't even know how to define that. So I learned something about ornithology tonight. Thank you very much.
It's a whole class of birds. They're called boobies. No joke.
I'll have to find out if I love boobies.
I just
much
knew
as
that
the
if
other
I was
boobies.
wrong, I was going to get 50,000 comments informing me of such. So I was trying to get ahead of the game.
That
And
was
then
very
I
good.
just... it's like I should have just kept my mouth shut.
So they got to run back. Oh yeah, open all the cages, and then he looks back like, oh no.
So glad we spent all that time catching the animals on camera just to let them go 10 minutes later in the movie.
Well, it was showing the fact that
He was willing to
correct, reciprocate. Yeah.
That he wasn't, was he knew that was the right course of action. Now they have to act. So.
Yep. So they come up with the plan. Like, hey, look, this bug disguises itself as a stick, to hide from predators, whatever. So I guess that gives him an idea. And it does. So what do? They paint the ship, and yeah, they did carry paint. None of this is far-fetched. Like, they had supplies in the very
ship's just
bottom
like
of the
a-
ship.
A
Well, they
floating
had
Home
done a
Depot
whole
or
thing.
something.
Yeah, they did. They had a whole thing earlier where they did a bunch of heavy-duty repairs to it.
Yep. And, they had the carpenter was an warrant officer. The rope maker was a warrant officer, because these are like skilled professionals and stuff,
And
right?
important.
So important as well. Yeah. So Mr. Lamb is the carpenter in this movie. It showed him several times. He's the one that plugged the holes in the first battle and all that stuff. And by the way, the thing that they're like pushing up and down on, that's called an elm pump. And that's how they would prevent the ship from sinking. They would pump the water out, right?
Oh.
Then plug the hole. So that's, pretty pretty advanced technology in the late early 1800s.
The whole thing is incredible to me. How any of it worked at all. Honestly.
Well, honestly, a lot of times they would build ships. I think this happened with some Swedish ships, and they would put the damn things in the sea, and then here they go, and like 100 yards later they would sink. So a year of constructing the ship and it immediately sinks.
Ouch.
Yeah. So the French, the British, and the Dutch were the best at shipbuilding. The Spanish kind of caught on later, but and then of course Americans, we made the best frigates ever that couldn't be sunken, but no one else was really good at making ships at that point in the world. So dang Swedes. So anyway, they disguise the ship up and all that, and they dress up, right? Pretty cool. And then he gives the speech. I thought it was a great speech.
I like the ending part the best. Or when he tells them, no sirs, no captains, and the first thing they do is say, yes, sir.
Yeah. That was kind of good campy humor.
A lot of programming they have to forget about for a little bit.
Yep. And though we be on the far side of the world, this ship is our home. This ship is England. So it's every hand to his rope or gun. Quick's the word, sharp's the action. After all, surprise is on our side. Just another cheesy joke from Captain Jack.
The cheese works from him. For me, anyway.
Yes.
Can I ask a question of the experts here? Because I'm like, this is another moment where I'm just like, okay.
Okay.
So you're going to disguise the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could see that working from a distance, but like, you're going to go so far as to wear costumes on the deck of the ship. Like at that point, like if they're looking and noticing what you're wearing on the deck.
What do you mean?
Spyglass.
Well, right, but like they don't also recognize that, like, wow, this thing really actually does look like the ship we just did battle with like twice before. Like, was it that well disguised?
Yeah, they moved the sails around and all that stuff.
If you change the silhouette and the outline enough, I guess
look right here.
You could fool them.
Yeah, some of the captain's cabin windows are blacked out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't buy it.
Okay. Then they had the smoke,
Now, is that meant to make them look, for whatever reason, like it's a whaling ship, or to look like they're in some kind of distress?
Yeah, whaling ship, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think
because
it's
they would be doing some. I didn't know. I figured they'd be doing something whaling related that would cause smoke. I don't know, but I wasn't sure on that point.
Right. And then he kind of explains what they're going to do in that speech as well. They remove the wheels from the cannon so that they could aim them up, so they could aim for the mast, which pretty much meant they could have one shot on that side of the ship because you wouldn't have recoil because they have them tied down with rope to prevent them from probably flying through the other side of the wall because those things had recoil. And then he kind of tells Blakeney that, hey, you're gonna be in command whenever we board, and he thought that was kind of cool.
I'm in charge. I'm the captain now.
I am the captain now. And then they draw him in, and then you finally get to hear the bad guys talking with his his typical French accent. Like
it was so just, I don't know. It was so exaggerated. I felt like
English will learn.
Prepare to
You
be
two, or we will
boarded.
destroy your ship.
We will destroy you.
Elderberries.
It would have been better if he said he farts in his general direction like that. I was waiting for that line. That would have redeemed the movie for me.
I was
fart
actually
in your general direction.
I was honestly hoping it would be Russell Crowe playing the other captain, just with a bad French accent. So he played both parts.
That would have been
And
funny.
a little mustache.
That
Yeah.
would have been funny.
Maybe Mel Brooks could do something with that.
So they come in on him, and let's see here, and because of honor, they had to raise their flag,
Well, that's what. Yeah.
Red Squadron flag.
Yeah, because it's pretty ungentlemanly to disguise your ship, and
Yep.
especially in that era, and lure someone in, and then just to basically attack them and kill them.
Yeah, well, they gave him
they're
just enough
lured,
time to
so,
say,
like,
"Hey, it's us."
Oh, that's just what's funny. So, okay, because they're luring them, but they're basically these people were going to take them over.
Mm.
They were going to attack them, and and probably kill them or take them prisoner and take all of their, whatever, whatever wealth they have, all the whaling, whatever stuff they would have. So it's just funny that they still want to make sure that that we play fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were technically
just...
the rules of engagement.
I know.
It's
just funny though.
That's why they raised their.
Well, rules of engagement are only for people who plan to lose.
Yeah, and it's like there's a referee
jacked.
there.
Yeah. So they take out the mast, and then eventually they board. I thought the physical combat was like you'd been waiting for something like that the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then they give it to you, and it was almost like watching one of those 1930s pirate flicks. I kept thinking of Chunk and the Goonies, like putting the knife in his mouth and then swinging down. Yeah.
One of the people who set up a lot of this sequence, and not just the director, the stunt guy, he used the term for it, high risk illusion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it looks like it's all chaos happening, but almost down to every action of every person was choreographed for days, if not weeks before that, leading up to it. So that when it happened, everyone had a very specific task of what they were doing, if they were attacking someone or doing whatever. And then when you see them rehearse it all, it's pretty badass. Like you see Russell Crowe and his stunt double, the different parts of the scene that they worked, and a lot of it is just pretty mind blowing.
I mean, it would have to be something like that has to be coordinated within an inch of its life. Otherwise, it would just never work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they think, once they board, they think that, they're all dead.
Yeah, that was a little odd that they really thought they were out of the woods. I think, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's when Mr. Allen gets shot in the head, right?
Bam.
So that was
just like that.
Yeah, he's gone after the whole movie. What I thought was awesome, all of them, here you have Jack and you have Mr. Mowat there, and here you have Killick. They all go into berserker mode.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because when you're in that situation, it's like you have to just fire up your adrenaline, or you're probably going to die.
Yeah, do or die.
There's Tom right there. So I thought it was a great action sequence, and then they go below
Fantastic
decks.
action scene.
Yeah, they used the grenades, which were a big thing at the time. They just start tossing those in all the hatches.
Yeah, I love how Russell Crowe just shoots down and then just throws both of his guns down as well.
Oh yeah, because you can't reload.
Yeah,
what they would do is
he just throws them straight down at whoever's down there.
Like him right here, Colony, right? They showed him with the string, because they would have a string of 5 up to 8 guns, and they would shoot and shoot and shoot until they were all empty. So that's how they did it. It's not like they had semi-automatic pistols or even revolvers at that point. I think there
was a well-known assault rifles ban on the high seas.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody was able to procure to secure one.
I think there were a few guns that could shoot multiple rounds, but they were very rare and very expensive. It showed a guy with a blunderbuss, which was like a shotgun at the time. In one of the shots, it showed, I think one of the surprise crew with one of those. They had the grenades, like I said, swords, axes.
Now, see, the grenades I think are underutilized. Like before you even run over to the other side to board the other ship, I'm lobbing like 40 of them babies in there.
Yeah,
I want a whole volley
because they're throwing distance. Like throw the grenades and blow up the ship that way, right?
Yeah.
Rather than board.
Well, they're trying to capture the ship, right? To keep it.
Yeah,
capture
that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, because they get to keep whatever. I think is they get the ship, and the ship belongs to the Royal Navy. But I think they get to keep whatever's in it, don't they?
Yeah. They divvy it up. Yeah,
so they've got a motivation not to actually sink it.
Yeah,
they wanted
the king's going to get some,
different.
but then the captain, officers, even all the way down to the lowest rank are going to get something out of it. So yeah, Steven's obviously a fencer the way that he fights with the sword, which makes sense, because he wouldn't be like a classical combatant. He'd be more of like a fencer for sport or whatever.
I happen to like Steven a lot, so I was very stressed during this whole thing.
Yeah, you thought he was gonna.
I thought he was gonna eat it for real this time.
Yeah, and then even Mr. Lamb
shape when it started.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. It's like, is he gonna rip his stomach open again? And
I was waiting for a bird to distract him, and then like the enemy captain.
Then someone could just
that guy shoots him again.
So even Mr. Lamb, the carpenter has his freaking mallet and knocking motherfuckers in the head too. That was kind of cool. And I believe all of that.
Oh yeah, whatever you can grab, whatever you use.
Whatever you can use, whatever you're good at using.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's kind of over, and then this is where Jack's skulking about, and he's like, "Oh, music! Is this something I can play?" And then that frog pops out from under the wood there, and he tries to stab him.
Oh yeah.
He's like, "Le Capitaine," and he says he's in like the infirmary in French.
Yeah, l'infirmary.
Yeah. Then there's like, the surgeon mate probably. And then here's this guy like, oh yeah, he died and he wanted you to have his sword. And this is probably just some random schmuck that they grabbed and threw up there to say what's the captain.
Yeah.
No, that's John Harrison.
Yeah.
It's not Khan.
Yeah. And this was traditional here. You gave up your sword as surrender.
As a sign of surrender, yeah.
Uh-huh. By the way, I keep meaning to do this. They make a Nelson replica sword for like $150. I need it. It's a real sword, not just like a, piece of plastic. Yeah.
That's a pretty good price for a sword.
Yeah, it is. I need it. So, that was kind of the thing, like, oh yeah, the captain's dead, whatever. And then they find out they're dead, right?
Yeah.
Call him, he's dead. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to the beginning of the movie where he's like, they push it through the nose to make sure you're dead. And he's like, don't do it or whatever.
Yeah, don't let him do it to me. I don't want that. And yeah, he goes to sew up his dead friend's hammock body bag. With his one arm.
Which is very impressive.
I thought, he made a good effort at it. Someone had to hold the pieces together, but he did manage.
Yeah.
Right. So then here's the shocking part. They have the funeral, which was really well done, and they make it like a traditional service where, it's the, what is it? The Lord's Prayer. Is that what you call it, Greg? You went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he, says all the lines, about and this kind of goes back to some science fiction too, when they do this in space or whatever, like returning their body, to the earth or whatever to be turned into what's it called? whatever the line is. So that really is like a tradition in the Navy, but he uses the lines like our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Like, who would expect even in 2003 for that line to be uttered, right? These are all guys that are probably Church of England, right, which is very similar to Catholic practices and stuff, just very traditional. So yeah, they're Protestant, but still not very different from Catholicism and their style of worship and all that.
Yeah, very similar branch Christianity.
Yeah, but then you come over here and you get all the different branches of the United States that are like really Protestant.
Here's why it was allowed in 2003, and it would actually still be allowed today. It's because these characters, the way that they're portrayed, are portrayed to be not good men, and the fact that they're the idea is that these are murderous, stealing,
colonizers,
pandering kind of bastards out at sea, and the fact that they use religious conveniently just shows the hypocrisy of religious people. That's why that type of scene will always be allowed in movies, because they will never show a truly virtuous person being religious, but they will show somebody who they consider to be hypocritically religious.
Yep. Makes sense. That's a really great insight, actually.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you read the books, you said this guy's really not like he's a protagonist, but he's not a classical hero. Like, he's the main character of the book, but he's
no. But by several books in, he kind of corrects himself. So yeah, I'll get to that, and when I talk about my idea for what a sequel would have been. So you get this, and he's kind of his mentor now or whatever, and it's like, oh look, it's our old friend, and to Rhetorical Thrill's point, this kid is like pretty screwed up at this point. So he says, all right, let's draw a picture or whatever.
And this kid's life experiences, he'd be ready to retire right now.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I wanted to have the scene like with Maverick at the end of the first Top Gun movie, where he like throws the bug over out to sea, like he's letting go of Goose's dog.
Like this kid is either going to become an amazing captain, in the Royal Navy, or he's going to become a serial killer.
Yeah.
Maybe both.
He becomes Jack the Ripper. That's the sequel.
There we go.
So here's the thing,
and then you can have Harrison Ford be there, and he's like, it was the one-armed man.
I don't care.
Here's the thing, though.
You've seen The Fugitive, Tim.
No. Well, maybe. I think I've seen parts of it.
Maybe.
I don't think I've seen the whole thing. I think I got bored. I guess I need to see it along with U.S. Marshals, right?
Oh yeah,
you could probably skip U.S. Marshals.
Okay.
Like I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I think they're both they're entertaining, but not I wouldn't say masterpieces by any stretch.
Well, I want to see it because it has Snipes, and he's a hero for being a tax evader. So, no, but it takes Steven out of his comfort zone too. I think because he's not interested in being a mentor to a kid or whatever, but he does it anyway because he probably knows the kid needs some kind of support that Jack can't give. So,
and he did show some affinity for the nature stuff, the science stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think he did because he wanted to connect, with someone too.
Possibly.
So.
Yeah.
So Tom, gets promoted on the spot, and he gives him his orders and stuff. So he's going to take the Acheron back to Valparaiso on the west coast of South America, right? And then he takes with him he's got Higgins. They got to have some kind of sturgeon, right, on the voyage and stuff, and a few other guys. So they take back off, and we're gonna go to the Galapagos again. Yay, you get to do your thing.
Psych.
Screech, scratch. He doesn't like the music. So this is where they play that that one cool song. And by the way, whenever you pick up your instrument and you play it like a guitar, it's called pizzicato style.
Okay.
FYI, it's something I learned from watching this movie. So then he finds out that, oh yeah, the doctor, the doctor was dead. So, oh no, that was the captain. So he calls Mowat to the cabin, and he says, turn around. We're going to escort the Acheron all the way into port and stuff. And
Yeah,
by the way, beat to quarters.
I don't get that. Like,
Well, that guy could have, engineered a mutiny and taken the ship back over.
That's what I actually was going to ask. What was that guy's?
was he allowed to
end game?
free roam on the ship? Like, why wouldn't he not be in like?
Sometimes,
leg
yeah.
irons?
Sometimes they would take captured guys and make them part of the crew.
Well,
They
if
would do
they
that
thought
sometimes.
he was just the doctor,
Yeah,
they wouldn't have seen him as there. I had
Right.
assumed when I watched it that they would have locked him up, that he would have just been a prisoner. But then I thought, well, what would his goal have been? How would he have gotten out of it? But you saying that they might have just, a mutiny makes sense, or some kind of surprise attack or something. But yeah, if they actually let him roam around, then that does make sense. So they have to go and stop them before that happens.
Yeah.
Eh.
So, and he has that line, your bird, it's flightless. Yeah. He's like, it's not going anywhere.
the
Yeah.
ultimate fuck you.
Thank you. That was my fucking point an hour ago.
But then he kind of just accepts it. Like, yep,
Yeah,
this is what we're doing. So let's just, here we go.
I would have said, remember the last time you went chasing after a bird, you idiot?
So they
He
play
was
the
just
music
walking
and-
around on the deck. It is honestly the idiot shooter's fault more.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
Captain
yes.
Howard.
I mean, in that situation, yes. The guy who like
He was
accidentally
just flailing the musket around.
accidentally
What the
shoots
hell?
a member of the crew because he's just target practicing some random bird.
Like, I feel like it should be basic knowledge. Don't fire your weapon at the deck where there are people. You
Yeah,
would
or
think.
like you could maybe hit a rope. That's
Yeah,
important,
something
or
important.
any number of things. Like you wouldn't fire into the ship to shoot a freaking
No.
stupid bird.
No, even if you're gonna eat it or whatever the goal was, I don't know, but yeah, no.
Still, like
No.
no. That seems
No
to be like
sense.
an unnecessary. Like the risk reward is quite
Yeah.
skewed there.
100% on that one.
Yep. So they play the music as they turn around, and the music or the camera kind of pans out, and that's the end of the movie. So what I would have done with like a sequel, the second book is called Post Captain, right? So he's only a commander, which is like kind of a glorified lieutenant in the first book. Well, he gets promoted, but he is on the run because he's in debt. And back then, there was such thing as debtor's prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he and Stephen make it across the channel to France, and then they're going through the wilderness and all this stuff, and kind of on the run from that until he finally gets like an assignment to command. Then they go to sea, but it's also a Jane Austen style romance novel, because that's when they meet their future wives in that book. And it's messed up because they both fall in love with Diana, right? But then she winds up only liking Stephen. And so Jack winds up with the chick that he's writing the letter to in the movie here, Sophie. So it's still, battles and all that stuff later on in the book, but the first half is almost like a Jane Austen style romance novel. Like Pride and Prejudice, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you give the chick something in that movie, plus toward the end, you finish it off with some really cool cutting out maneuvers. And what that means is when you go steal like the enemy ship, they do that a few times in the book. Great book. It's, I think, the longest book in the 20-book series. that sucker's like way thicker than this one.
Which one was
So,
that?
Post captain.
Okay.
So it only takes 2 books for him to get promoted to captain, from just like commander of smaller vessels. So that's what I would have done. I would have given the audience something completely different that would have satisfied the book fans, plus, probably brought in more women, because there was an article about 3 months ago. I can't remember which website, but it said, why is this movie like universally like loved by guys, pretty much. But I'm glad you liked it,
I loved it. I don't know. I just sometimes female oriented movies are fine with me, and I don't know. Like, there was no women in this movie, and I didn't miss them. So
yeah. Wow. Clip that, please.
Well, I got a lot of shit about Tombstone for not really liking any of the women in Tombstone.
The women characters in Tombstone aren't very likable.
No.
Tombstone? Guess what, guys?
Haven't seen it.
Haven't seen Tombstone.
It's really,
like
really
they're
good.
opportunistic.
Well, the female lead, even, like, I couldn't stand her.
Kind of
What?
a bitch. Yeah, she's kind of a bitch.
I couldn't stand her. She was, if there was such a thing as manic pixie dream girls in the Old West, she was it. Like, she's just like, she's like a 40-year-old woman acting like she's 16. Like, I'm just here to have fun. I don't think about any consequences ever. And ugh. Yeah, what was the stuff she would say? Stuff like, I don't remember what it was, but basically, yeah, it was all just I do whatever I want to do, and aren't I just carefree and amazing? And it just, it's supposed to make Wyatt Earp, see real life, and I don't know. I wasn't into that. I liked everything else about the movie, though.
Hold on. 0 for 4 on what, Jack?
He's keeping track of what movies you haven't seen.
So you haven't seen Tombstone, Gladiator. What was the other two?
Fugitive.
And
I don't remember what the other one was. I'm sure he'll tell us in a second.
Attached to the Fugitives, but no.
I think there was.
Like, are we counting
else.
that one, or was there?
I don't know if we were counting both of them.
Jack, what was the fourth one?
Give him a minute there.
No, but this movie right here that we just talked about, when I take out, my traditional favorites like Star Wars and Star Trek stuff, this is probably like my favorite movie. I've probably seen it about 50 times, I'd say.
I think it's one of the best movies I've seen recently.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I think it's great filmmaking. I think it's great character studies. And yeah, you could point out, some of the stuff like the bird, but that kind of stuff happens, right? So,
well, and I think there's something to be said too, because there's movies that I've seen where I can recognize this is good, but I don't like it.
Gotcha.
Well, and for me, like I would say, like, is this movie good? Sure. Like I was entertained a lot in the process of watching it, but like it maybe doesn't rise to masterpiece for me.
Yeah, which is I mean, yeah, everything can't be that for everybody.
And I think it left too much on the table for my taste. Like I picture like this would be a great miniseries. Like it's all the makings for a good miniseries of this is all there. Like I can see it.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't bring it all together for me.
Okay.
And the certain aspects of it, like they were just like, the Galapagos Island part. I'm just like, wow.
I can see it if you don't like how they're doing the stuff on the sea, how the Galapagos part would be a total pace killer. I can see that.
Mm-hmm. No, I again, my favorite, non-conventional movie for me because I like my Star Wars, all the Star Wars, stuff like that. But this, when it comes
I
to
like all the
normal
Star
movies,
Wars.
yeah, exactly. When it comes to like just movies in general, this is far and away my favorite. So, anyways, anything else to add? Like any questions about maybe the era that I didn't already cover? Like, why is this real, or why did this happen, or anything like that? Because after I saw the movie in 2007, I started doing a lot of research. Books like this book is awesome. It's made specifically for the novels, Sea of Words, and it has definitions of like the whole freaking book of definitions of stuff from the books and other nautical stuff. So I know quite a bit about the era.
I've got
I
a
don't
question
think
about
anything.
the movie overall, or really
Yeah.
would you prefer, like you said you had the idea for the sequel, or would you prefer they just sort of started from scratch and were more closer to the source material, like it was actual, instead of changing them to British or French?
Well,
or
kind of a conditional answer, because I'd say no, because if they had one shot at it, right, then I think they did it right. And they probably knew they had one shot at it. So let's take one of the books that happens at sea, and hey, we don't think it'll be marketable in the United States.
Yeah.
So let's change it to that, because I don't think that was important. Because you say,
No.
oh, the book is nothing like the movie. Well, it really was like the movie because all the characters were true. Like if you read even the first book, you can see these actors as you read it, even though the book came out, 30 years before the movie did. And I think the 60s is the first book, late 60s, maybe early 70s. But the point is that it's more about the characters, the plot itself than the specifics of it. So I didn't have a problem with that. Now, if they had been given more time, I'm more like with Greg, like have like a series. And you say streaming, but
Well,
like with her,
anything.
yeah, like with Horatio Hornblower, the
Mhm.
way that they do British series, it's almost like a 2-hour episode, but they
Mhm.
only have a few episodes a season. They
Yeah,
could
like
have done something
Sherlock.
like that. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
like Sherlock and Wallander and stuff like that. So they could have.
I was picturing like Band of Brothers. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Something with a bigger budget, with
And start with the first
longer
book.
episodes, but
Yeah.
fewer of them. But
Like,
so
how
it's
did
a
they meet?
bigger time investment than a movie, but not quite as
Yes.
much necessarily as 21 novels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think then you get more invested in the character. So when things happen to
Mhm.
them, there's a little bit more payoff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how did
some of the
Jack
characters
and Stephen meet?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things. Like when we saw that shot at the end, where you're pulling up the screenshots of the funeral at the end. That's when I first saw that. I was shocked that there was that many people on that boat.
Right. Yep.
Like you don't get the scale of there's that
Mhm.
many characters, because a lot of the time you are lost in just the story of just a little sort of handful of
A
them.
few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So read the books, but just again, be prepared for kind of learning how to read that style of writing, because it's like you're in 1805 and you're reading a book from 1805. So
It's good to know.
yeah, he had to have been brilliant to be able to do that, because how do you know how to write that way in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s? Like, how would you know? It's
Just
like
by reading a lot of other things that are written in that era, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Apparently,
That's where I would start.
Big into the encyclopedias. Like he got a lot of his information from the specific volumes that were of that time and dealt with the ship making and a lot of the I guess you'd call it technology of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good question though. Did you have a question before Blake cut you off for Torgal Thrill?
No, I was going to say,
Apologies.
we started talking at the same time. No, I don't think I have really anything to ask. I think you covered most of the stuff that I wasn't sure about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm working on some cool stuff. Like there's a chart of all these, the crew members, not of this ship, but of a typical one. And I'm making bands, like, sections, because the way that the poster is made, they're separated. And I'm going to show, okay, these were commissioned officers, these were warrant officers, these were non-commissioned officers, and blah, blah, blah. I think that'd be a cool, like, reference to have, because not all of them dress that way. Like, the Hobbit guy, again, non-commissioned officer, but he didn't have a uniform. Only the commissioned guys did. So, yeah, stuff
that
like
was kind of hard to keep straight.
Mm-hmm. Anyone that's doing anything important, like driving the ship, is at least going to be a non-com,
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, good stuff. Anything else to add before we wrap it up here? Okay.
Not for me.
Not particularly, but I do agree. I think this would have been a great series or an extended story to follow along.
It still could be. I mean, it would be nice if there'd be some interest in it, being as it's 20 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
2003. Yeah. It's been a long time.
Because a lot of people really do love it, and I think it just bad timing, when it came out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's I don't want to call it a cult classic, but it has an audience, like, that are very vocally supportive of it.
It's just not big enough relative to its budgetary cost.
Yeah, probably.
That's the problem. Some of these things just aren't realistic to do on the budgets that they're given.
Right.
And as far as like a ship, a movie about pirate, or like a movie about naval warfare and stuff like that, this one, it hedged it pretty well, because they didn't shoot all out at sea. They shot mostly on a tank. It was like 10 days out at sea, and they switched between two life-size models, miniatures or bigatures, and visual CGI ships. So they used a great array to get what they needed. Like, if they had done all this on the ocean, the movie would still probably be shooting till this day. Like, they would have never finished it. And if they had done it all on a tank, it wouldn't have had a lot of the life that it ended up having.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have been able to do those, like, wide.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of skill a lot of skill used in the shooting of this movie. You can tell that they knew what they were doing. And like, yeah.
I think, like, here's a lesson, like if science fiction people out there making movies, making series, or writing books, like, do naval warfare in space. It's so much more dramatic and better than just having a bunch of ships flying around the screen with lasers going everywhere.
So a good example of that is David Weber, the Honorverse series, and he actually based that series more on Horatio Hornblower. The main character is Honor Harrington, H.H., but he legitimately and realistically, like, takes sea warfare and finds a way to apply it to space. It's pretty freaking cool.
It's cool. Like Wrath of Khan, the director, Nicholas Meyer, like, going into it, he wasn't very familiar with Star Trek at all. Again, proof that, like, you don't have to have somebody who's like a super duper lore expert. You just have somebody that has to be willing to do the work once they get hired. And he watched the original series with the producer, and he's like, okay, I get this. It's Horatio Hornblower in space.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
And that's the kind of, like, if you look at the combat, the ship-to-ship combat in Wrath of Khan, it's very naval-like.
Yeah.
It makes sense, though.
Which is good for good dramatic. Like, you can have those pauses, you can have those tacticals, the discussions on the bridge, and, like, it's just a great setting to do that kind of stuff. But as far as, like, other sailing movies, since this one's nautical, we're discussing sailing movies. If you're really into sailing movies, there's two I would also recommend. One is called One Crazy Summer, and the other one is called Summer Rental. They're great sailing movies.
Summer Rental.
Summer Rental, yeah, John Candy.
Yeah, John Candy, yep.
He literally flies his pants.
Yeah.
Or sails his pants.
I don't know that one.
You got to
never
see
seen
it.
Summer Rental?
No, I'd
Oh my
never
gosh.
heard of it.
It's got super young Joey Lawrence.
Mhm.
And the girl in Goonies is like the younger
redhead?
daughter, the young daughter. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is the daughter in that movie.
I've
And then, of course, you
never
got John
heard of
Candy
this
as the.
before.
Oh, it's so
and it's got-
great.
It's funny.
I will have to look into that.
Yeah, and then of course, One Crazy
So
Summer is
good.
also. That's
for a
weird John Cusack 80s comedy.
Yeah. So for a serious recommendation, do hunt down the Horatio Hornblower series starring Eoin Gruffydd as the titular character. Again, the effects there in some shots, you're like, yeah, those are like tiny models, but it's not that bad. And great character development. And they do start from the beginning there. The very first book, I think, is Mr. Midshipman Hornblower. They literally start the first TV movie from when he's boarding the ship, and it's line by line. Like the officer's like, "Do you have any dunnage?" And he's like, "What's dunnage?" So they mean kind of like luggage and stuff. But he, slowly becomes an officer and a captain and all that stuff. It's fantastic. So hunt that down. One of the episodes has Dennis Lawson, Wedge Antilles from Star Wars. So pretty cool.
Wow.
And there's a lot of land episodes. There's one where they attack France. And I think that one's called The Lobsters and the Frogs. That's a really good episode. So, and then there's one where they go to a Spanish prison and they have to break out. It's good. And I like Eoin Gruffydd. I don't know if you guys do, but I think he's a great actor.
I know his name. I don't think I could tell you
Oh,
he's been in off the top
King
of my
I was
head.
good in King Arthur.
Fantastic Four. He's
Mr.
The-
Fantastic in the
Mr.
early
Fantastic,
2000s one.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of the Fantastic Fours.
I gotta pull the guy up. You know who he
I
is.
know who he is. I would know his face probably, but it's like I just like off the top of my head can't think of anything that I've seen that he's in.
All right, let's pull this up here.
He's just one of those guys where like you know someone, you hear their name. Yeah. I know of that guy, but couldn't.
He's in a lot of
couldn't
stuff.
tell ya.
Yeah, he's fantastic in it because there's this. I think the second might be the first episode, TV movie, whatever, where he's kind of being bullied
Mhm.
by another midshipman that's kind of like Hullum, where he's way too old and he hasn't been promoted yet. So he starts bullying him and stuff, and they finally have a duel and stuff because
Okay.
honor duels were very much things
Yeah.
back then. So that's
Fair enough.
another good episode.
Oh, Jack says the fourth one was Castaway. The other movie you hadn't
Oh, yeah,
seen.
that's right.
Oh yeah, again.
Oh,
I'll
that's
never
not a
see
miss. That's
No,
you can not
That's
see that
bad.
one ever.
I'll
You've
never
got to
see
watch
it.
it to
I-
get
from
my
what I
my Wilson
recall-
reference.
From what I recall of Castaway, the stuff with him, like basically once he gets to the island and until he leaves, that's the part that I thought was good. The rest
Once
was
he
good.
leaves the island, shut the movie off.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, I heard it. Yeah, I've read though that part. I never knew that happened until I read about it. I'm like, wait, I thought that whole movie was about him being there, and then probably at the very end, right? But no, there's a whole.
There's a lot after
Yeah.
he leaves, and
Mhm.
that's
And none
that's
of none
less
of it after he
interesting.
leaves is good.
Yeah,
Like once he gets I won't say once he leaves the island, once he gets rescued
back to civilization. Yeah,
back to civilization, just end it there and the movie
you haven't missed
passed.
anything.
Gotcha. So anyhow, Blake has put links in the chat. Do you have anything to plug, Rhetorical Thrill?
Just the usual. The
Yeah.
channel is linked there, and now all my stuff is linked on my channel. So
Nice.
I've been live streaming on Twitch pretty much every weekend. Usually Saturdays is what I go for. That's a good time. Took last week off. I needed to catch up on some stuff, but back on schedule. Got something coming Saturday. So
Okay.
and I think it
Sweet.
turned out pretty well. So
Good deal. Blake?
The Running Man was good.
thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna try and if I can. Been having a few tech issues this week, but try and get that rewriting Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe done, and also I really want to get to that favorite 5 westerns streams.
Oh yes,
Two
I
of
want
them.
you to get to that too.
Pre-80s, pre-1980s, and a one for 5 westerns after 1980s.
Nice, I love
So yeah,
West.
that'll be
That'll be
coming
good.
up.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to them because there's a couple more movies I wanted to watch beforehand, but I'd seen them before, but I just wanted to watch them again to sort of refresh and stuff. And it's been fun going back and watching the old westerns.
Oh yeah, it's like a comfort movie for me.
Mm.
So Greg and I will be back next Wednesday. I think we're going to do Grounds of Expediency. There's so much to talk about there. We've got to find a way to build that audience because it's on a different channel for obvious reasons, right? So we've got to find a way to build that up. I don't think people are aware of it. So if you're listening,
maybe like a
sure-
video or a short on this channel.
Yeah,
like when
that
you're
might be a
going to
good
go
idea.
live, like
Mhm.
and just put the link out to say we're going live on this channel
That's
or
a
something.
good idea. Yep. And then make sure you sub up to it. I did get about 10 subs one day when I did a community post. I'm like, hey, here's my other one. Make sure you sub to it. So that's good. And then sometime in June, I'm going to have the 3rd installment of the one-on-ones with my friends from Four Corners podcast. So I'll have to get with him, Shad, and find out when can you do that. But again, Friday night we'll be back for the spacing, and I'm sure we'll have tons of fun on that. There's a lot to talk about that's come up. So be sure you're with us about 48 hours from now. It'll be awesome.
This week's gone fast.
Yeah, it is. So thanks, Blake, as always, for joining. Thanks, Greg. And once again, it's a treat to have you here. Rhetorical Thrill. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I saw your video and I'm like, well, we've been talking about it. So let's just set the stream up and do it. So we did it.
Well, you talked about it. And then I was like, well, I haven't seen it yet, and I wanted to see it. And we miscommunicated. I thought I was meant to have seen it before.
No, it's kind of cool because now, we were able to talk about what you talked about.
Yeah.
So,
it worked out in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can watch your video on it because I was supposed to go into this not seeing it.
No, I get it. And not gonna lie, I think it turned out pretty good.
What, the video?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
I like what I've been doing lately, so it's good.
Well, something's working, so
I'm just hoping I didn't kill it by taking the week off, though.
Oh, it'll
Hopefully
come back.
We just need Starsky and Hutch.
Yes, I know. I will get there, Blake. I will get there. I've got a lot of people very adamant about certain things, so it's like I gotta get.
There's so many.
Write down Summer Rental.
I will do that. I will do that right now, actually.
Yeah, I think you'll like
I
that
will.
one.
I will forget if I don't. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's why we did it, Jack. We talked about it. We're like, yeah, watch party would. Here's a watch party. Oh
Right.
yeah. It's like kind of weird. I remember when we did Star Trek, we'd be sitting there, Greg, and people would be like, "What are you guys doing?" So
if you were watching along, it was fun.
Yeah, I got a mirror eventually that had like what was on my screen on the mirror, and somehow that didn't get claimed or whatever. I think I stole that idea from Anna, that Star Wars girl. So anyway, we're just beating around the bush here. So guys, thanks for being here. Fantastic chat. Thanks for being here. Stizo for life. Thanks for the donation. Appreciate it. And again, we'll be back Friday night with the spacing. Have a great rest of the week. And don't forget to beat to quarters.
We shall beat to quarters!
What a fascinating modern age we live in.